Okay, welcome everyone to the meeting tonight, the Village Planning Board here on March 21st, 2023. We appreciate you being here. If you are watching us on Zoom and you are here to comment, we ask that you mute yourself until we get to that point, and then we will recognize you for your comments. So to begin with, we're going to have some administrative activities. Then will be followed by public comment. Then we'll have public hearings, 2 of them, and then we have 7 application reviews. So it's quite a crowded agenda tonight. So with that in mind, let's get started here. The first thing we want to do is look for updates. Is Will Murray here? No. We're going to look for updates from the Ulster County Planning Board, the Village of New Paltz Board of Trustees. Is he online at all either? And the Village of New Paltz Environmental Planning Board. Okay, as we have no representatives for that, we are going to move past that. The next thing we're going to do is get an approval of the minutes from the meeting on March 7th, 2023. Did everyone get a chance to take a look at the minutes that were passed out?
Yes.
Are there any edits, changes, comments that we need to make on that? No. Okay, so with that in mind, I'd like to get a motion to approve the minutes for the March 7th, 2023 Village of New Paltz Planning Board meeting.
So motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So those meetings minutes have been completed. So now we're going to depart from just some basic administrative aspects. One of the things we want to do is we want to introduce Ellen Rocco. She at some point will be joining the board as an alternate. So welcome to the meeting, Ellen, and make sure this is what you want to get into.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you for volunteering.
Thank you.
The next thing we're going to do is I want to announce that we do have some issues related to a sewage system, and they are issues with the pump station and the project's impacts to that pumping system. These issues will need to be studied and solutions will need to be crafted. So what I would like to do, we have our village engineer with us. He's going to speak on some very specific aspects of some plans that we have before us. But I would like Dennis, if you could, just to give us a quick and general view related to the pumping system and the issues that are occurring. So Dennis, if you would, please.
Thank you, John. The Village Department of Public Works has had ongoing maintenance issues with what I would say two of the pump stations in particular in the village. One is on Henry Du Bois, which are unaffected by these 2 projects on North Chestnut. And the other is what they call the Stop 32 pump station, which is essentially right across the street from the car wash. And just north of one of the projects, in front of you and just south of the other. And the village public works superintendent and staff, along with the mayor, have asked that as part of the review of these 2 projects, that that particular pump station be evaluated for a number of things, but most of it has to do with system reliability and age of components. Pump station was originally installed in 1963 as part of the housing project there behind it, and I think has only had one minor upgrade in 1992. Does have emergency power available, which has been a lifesaver, but with 2 major projects being one directly tributary to the pump station, and the other was planning to try to use the force main discharge force main from the pump station, which would have some impacts on the pump station operation. The Public Works Department and the mayor want to see an analysis. An analysis may show things are better than expected, or they may show they're worse than expected, but they want to see an engineering analysis of that pump station from a capacity, age, system reliability point of view. Anytime the village has an overflow at either a pump station or through a manhole due to its collection system age and condition, it draws the ire. Besides that, it's not a pleasant thing to happen. It draws the ire of the DEC as well, and the village is under a consent order to make continual improvements to its wastewater collection and conveyance system. The good side of that consent order is brought grants into the village to replace areas of the problem. The most significant problem with sewer areas, a block or two at a time. Essentially, it's a $750,000 to $1 million grant that the village has been able to get every year to go into system replacement. Unfortunately, that grant program does not want to fund a pump station replacement because they want the improvements targeted to removing extraneous flow from the system, infiltration and inflow. So having said that, you have two projects that are both 10 and 11,000 gallon a day or so design flows coming into the system, and the village Public Works that has to maintain the system and report any violations to the DEC has requested that in the context of these projects and any other projects of magnitude that would be tributary to that station would be an evaluation done to see if additional improvements are needed at the station.
Great. Thank you very much, Dennis. So that's a general comment. I know there are going to be specific questions as we get into the applications. However, that is something that we all need to be aware of, and that those who are going to be making applications in that area need to be aware of. Thank you, Dennis. We'll call on you a bit later. So the next thing we want to do is we're going to move to public comments. Now, this is a section in which if you have general public comments not related to a specific application on the agenda tonight, that you are quite free to make if you would like. Even if it is specific, you may make those, but we'd like to hold the specific comments to the public hearings that are going to be coming immediately following. Is there anyone here to make any general comments for the public comments? Hold on, not quite yet. Anyone that wants to make a general comment? Is there anyone online that wants to make a general comment and statement? There's someone back there. Okay. Okay, so why don't we start, ma'am? If you'd like to come up and make a general statement, please.
I was on the call, the last meeting that we had, and you told me to come down, talk about the traffic on Route 32 North Chestnut Street.
Sure.
Is that where we should talk
Sure.
about that right
That
now?
sounds fine.
Okay, great, thank you. So I know that we've had a lot of changes on Route 32 North Chestnut Street. I mean, Stewart's moved from their old location to the new location, and I think that's been pretty successful. And we have Zero Place now, which is, also been very successful. And there's quite a few applications on here for a lot of building with a lot of more traffic that's going to come down the road. So we used to use a cut through on Old Kingston Road, like right before the schoolhouse road. You used to be able to go through, and then you go through the Bosie's lot. So that has been cut off. So now it kind of forces traffic to go up the road and people to stay on the road. So I do have
that off. You can't. When did that happen?
there's the bar that goes across now. So we have to stay on the road. So there's no more cut through that Kingston Road. There's been a gate put up there.
That's the road that curves by Bosse's.
That's correct. And this is where you have to walk now, which there's a culvert pipe, which is very narrow.
Mhm.
So riding a bike and not cutting through there, I see, we go on the road a lot. We use the rail trail almost every day. So it's just been a little difficult to try to navigate the traffic, cut across the road. And I just wanted to kind of bring attention to that piece. And also, when you come from the farm stand and come up and make a left from Main Street onto North Chestnut where the gas station is, there's like no delay and there's no left-hand turn signal there. So a lot of traffic gets stuck. I just took a picture of that also. And people stay out in the middle of the road, or, you just can't get through the light, maybe one vehicle at a time. So as we, again, put more and more people on this one stretch of road, I think that it's just going to make it harder and harder and harder to either walk on this area or continue to, make a left-hand turn at that light. Also, the traffic is speeding. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that are not, going the speed limit through there. I don't know where the 55 starts, but I do know that it's at least 40 going past Bosse's and going past Sunset Ridge. And then, like my husband had said, it doesn't get to be 30 until like you get past my market. So really, people aren't slowing down until they get to that 30 mile an hour. And I just don't know why we have a 40 mile an hour going past two school areas. So it would be nice if they could take a look at the traffic that's on the road. So I don't know if they've ever taken a look and done a traffic study to see how many speeding tickets there have been in the area, how many accidents there have been in the area. I know that they had a car that was overturned when a school bus came out. I think it was last year.
Mhm.
That was a pretty bad accident. There's been several others in front of our house because we live like right on that corner. I don't know if there is a study on how many times the police have been called to, for deer accidents. There's been 7 deer hit right in front of our yard. 2 of them had to be shot while we were on our yard, just standing there because, the cars are just going too fast. And also, I guess that's about it that I wanted to say. I just wanted to kind of see if there was anything that could be done.
Fortunately for you tonight, we will have 2 traffic consultants who have done some studies on the traffic in that area.
Okay.
I have noticed that there have been more than a few county sheriffs that have been prowling in that area.
They do.
And I think that while we don't have any jurisdiction over that, I think a phone call to them is always
Mhm.
responded. We've seen that some of the applicants that have come out here are looking to create sidewalks and pedestrian access and to create bike lanes. So I know that's part of their plans. The choke point, of course, is the bridge, that small bridge before you get into the village. And that makes it difficult, and we don't know how to, really don't know how to approach that, to resolve it. But if you can't stay, what I would suggest is that you get in touch with our project manager, Autumn, and you can get a review of what the traffic studies said. That's going to be public information, so you can see what the traffic flow is. I'm sure they have accident counts in that. You can look at the quantity that they have in there and what the proposed projects will do to either increase or manage that. So that information will be there. But I agree with you that it's, I like to ride my bicycle up in that area, and I don't anymore. It's just not worth the the trouble.
So for the traffic study, they never did like a counter, because I would have gone over it. I mean, like when you say traffic study and also speeds, I mean, like, do we have any idea of what and how many people are going through without going the speed limit? Because they don't have like that sign that says,
Right.
you know, you're going past 30 miles an hour, please slow down. There's been none of that. There's been no counters. So is a traffic study, what is a traffic study and
The-
how are they determining this?
They don't have some of the data that you've asked for. They're going to talk about the quantity of traffic coming through there and when it comes through. And they'll be able to give you an idea that between this hour and this hour, this is what we see. As far as speeding, I don't think that they've done any studies on speeding, but they have done traffic counts, maybe not through the mechanical means, but by observation. So that they have looked at that, and that's something we're requiring as part of their site plan. And if it appears that it's going to be out of line, then we will make some recommendations to manage the traffic better and more easily. For instance, I think at one point we looked at having an entrance and exit in one area, but because it was a blind entrance and exit, we decided the applicant decided that was not going to work out. So they've made some changes to their site plan to move it. I know that we have talked about having access across the street so that people can go from the sidewalk into their area and then access the rail trail from there. So there are a lot of moving parts in here. One of the problems we have is that quickly becomes a county road.
I know.
And that's an issue. We can only govern it so far into the village, and then there's the sections to town, and then there's a section that turns into the county after that. So we have, all we can do is request modifications within that small area. And I know that may not be satisfying to you, but unfortunately, we're kind of limited by that.
Okay.
But I think that you're on the right track by calling the sheriff. I think, or calling the village police. And I think making a request for having a sign there that would say your speed is too fast is not untoward at all. I think that's probably a good idea to call it and make that.
Do that. I would do that.
Yeah, you're going to have to do that. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's one of those things that if you get enough people to call, they respond.
Okay. All right.
Or if you call frequently enough, they'll
Yeah.
respond.
Okay.
But we understand your problem, and we are looking to address that with each new application that's in that area. We're requiring a traffic study so we can see what the effect of that is going to be.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you.
You're
hearing
very
me out.
welcome. Thank you for coming out. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. So is there anyone else that wants to make a general public comment? Or the rest of these comments to be made to a specific application?
They're online and one person here in the audience.
Okay, and in the audience? Sure, come on up.
So I also have concerns about the same issue that the person before me spoke about.
Mhm.
And I also have a second issue, so I'll try to be brief as possible. Okay. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I live at 136 North Chestnut. And one of the things that I've noticed, I've been living there for almost 7 years now, is how much traffic has increased through that whole area. And the lack of sidewalks that are consistent, the lack of any kind of awareness of where people are exiting from both sides of the street. And now we will be having a new commercial mixed-use building right across from the entrance to the Village Arms. I'm also worried about crosswalks or the lack thereof, and the lack of people are speeding. A lot of people have to cross from the side that I'm on to go to the rail trail. So that's many people will not stop, even if I'm halfway through the road with an animal or a small child. The thing that I'm most concerned about is the second issue, which goes down to the 137 North Chestnut. So there are two parts to that. One was where their entrance is going to be for their parking, where people will be turning whether it's left or right, going into their parking lot area and where that relationship is to our exit and entrance. The other piece is that they have asked to have a extra 2 feet of their building, and I want to feel very concerned about that. We are a condo unit where the value of our condo is specifically important to us. It's not a rental. We also have views, and the apartments have, again, value to our, the value of our apartments, condo units by the view. And we also feel that there'll be increased noise, and I don't know what they're planning to do with the extra 2 feet, but I have concern about it. And I would be someone who would like to speak out to say that I don't wish for that to happen.
Are you referring to the extra 2 feet in height?
Yes, that's what the special, that's what they're talking about in the special use permit.
Variance,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I think that I have strong concerns about that, and other people I've spoken to in my condo complex have also said that as well. But I mostly want to piggyback on the person in front of me. I'm concerned with this whole strip of 136, excuse me, of 32, that there is speeding. People, there's not enough crosswalks, and people are, could become dangerous. I think that there needs to be a little bit more of a slowdown and looking at what is going on there, rather than just, giving permission for things to get built without finding out what are the sidewalks, what are the traffic, where is the traffic going to enter, where is it going to exit from, is that going to be dangerous for people, and things like that. So I don't need to keep repeating
No, it's
myself.
okay. When an applicant comes, they have to provide us with a site plan, and the site plan details things like where the sewer line is, where the water line is, how high, tall, how wide, but it also includes information on entrance and exits. So we have a lot of influence over these entrances and exits, and we have made some recommendations, and our consultants are here tonight that will be talking about those as well. So we're keenly aware of the entrance and exit issues, and we have talked quite a bit about sidewalks and the placement of sidewalks and crosswalks and how we can manage that. So we're in the initial stages of that, but your comments are pointedly to a lot of the things that are already on our agenda and on our discussions with them, because we want to make sure that it's safe for residents, because there's going to be a lot of people crossing, going to the rail trail because they're going to allow access. There's going to be quite a few people who will be walking back towards the village, the Stewart's to grab an ice cream as an example. And then we know where that choke point of that small bridge is. So they're going to have to cross the street to get on the other side. We're aware of that. And we are, we don't know exactly what the appropriate answer is yet. But we have some ideas that we have offered them. And if you can just stay on us, a periodic letter to our village project manager would be helpful as well, just to kind of make sure that we keep on task, and feel free to come anytime and make a comment. I think.
Just
Sure.
in our last meeting, we had a similar conversation where we talked about how this recurring issue in terms of development on 32 is going to involve a lot of work with DOT, because there's only so much that we can suggest. And a lot of people have concerns about speed and crosswalks, but we have to work with the Department of Transportation in terms of actually facilitating certain points of access. So we're trying to send a recommendation to the Department of Transportation so that they can initiate their own sort of effort to facilitate what's happening, because we can approve things and we could delay things, but we need to work. We can only do so much. But we are working, I think, we're trying to make suggestions with the Department of Transportation.
And if we offer something that's not acceptable to the Department of Transportation, they simply won't allow it.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
One thing I wanted to add, please, is that for you and the other person who addressed, and I wanted to ask Autumn, is all the material that's in PB 2211 available to the public this time? So in other words, the traffic studies are trailing?
There needs to be some changes to the way that the public records are currently organized. So at the moment, yes, there are files that are available, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But the way that the situation is currently set up is going to change. So you can contact me about that when you have questions.
So I just wanted to make sure we didn't promise something that might not be available. It seems
Sure.
like at this time, there is a traffic impact study that addresses in particular the locations and the mileage that you're asking about in every one of those intersections, actually. So you might find that interesting to kind of quantify some of the issues that you live with
Mhm.
and look at what some of the proposed development might do to change that, those circumstances. So I would really, it's 245 pages, but I would recommend a glance at least.
Nice read.
Late night study.
Because there's it's really perfectly relevant to everything you're asking. Accident rates, collisions, service levels at all those intersections.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We do have one hand up online. So
Sure, let's go ahead and bring them on.
it's Peggy.
Good evening. You would like to unmute yourself and address the board, we'd be happy to hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for making this meeting available by Zoom. So I'm home and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you. I mean, delighted to be at this meeting. So I also live at 136 North Chestnut Street in the Village Arms condominium. And I am concerned on two levels for this 137 North Chestnut Street coming in. One is the height requirement, why this needs to be higher than what's standard and allowed. And the other thing is, I looked at the site plan online and I didn't see any space for greenery. Are there going to be bushes? Are there going to be trees? What's it going to look like? Yesterday, I had to go up to Kingston and I was on, I'm kind of new here, so I think I've got the streets right. Albany into Ulster Avenue.
Mhm.
And it is a nightmare. It's like Route 17 in Bergen County. I don't
It is.
think we want that to happen here. I think going up north on 32, there are some ugly commercial buildings and so on, but basically it's a very pleasant ride. There's a view of the mountains. I don't think we want it to look like Route 17. At least I hope not. And so I hope you will consider and this height requirement. I would say, why? You know, why do you need to build 2 feet higher if that's what it is? I didn't actually see that, but I know there's a request for a waiver. So that's basically, those are my thoughts, and thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Just to note that there will be some architectural studies and renderings that will be put out so that you'll have the opportunity to view them. And we'll certainly discuss those when as it moves along. There will also be a landscape design that will be required, and it will have to be done by a certified landscape architect, so that it won't be just a barren field with a building in the middle of it. That's something that the Village of New Paltz is aware of and is really tries to avoid that. We have talked about the traffic increases and the studies that have some of that information in it. And as far as the commercial development, we in the Village of New Paltz have made that district called the NBR, the Neighborhood Development, what is it, NBR? Neighborhood Business Residential, in which we want to combine residential and commercial so that it will not simply be a series of mini malls spreading out along that piece of road. So the village is aware of the comments that you have, because they've tried to prepare in advance for that. So we certainly will not allow that to be part of what occurs. It'll have to conform to the requirements of that district. So, but thank you very much for coming on and speaking with us. We do appreciate it. So moving now through the public comments, we are going to move then to the public hearings. The first public hearing will be PB 2215 123 Main Street, Southern Acquisition Company. It's an application for a site plan review for the clearing of vegetation that has been done in connection with the maintenance of a drainage ditch. We are here, and I want everyone to note that this public hearing is regarding a site plan that is intended to bring the application into compliance. We are not approving any further work or anything else. This is simply to bring what has occurred into compliance with the regulations that we have. If there is to be any further construction or action on that site plan, they will have to come back to the planning board for a complete and further review. So with that, I would like to get a motion to open the public hearing for PB 2215 123 Main Street. Second, all in favor? Aye. So is there anyone here who wants to speak to this application PB 2215 123 Main Street? So please raise your hand. No? Okay. So I'm sorry, do we have anyone online? Okay. So if no one is here to speak to this specific application in this public hearing, I would like to ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Some motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the public hearing for PB 2215 is closed. The next one is PB 2211 137 North Chestnut Street. Application for site plan and special use permit on the construction of 64,000 square foot, 3-story mixed use building. What I would like to ask for then is a motion to open the public hearing. Second, all in favor? Aye. Is there anyone here to speak to this specific application in public hearing? Okay, so there are several of you. There's also a number of letters that have come in that we have collected. They will be part of the record, but we're not going to read each and every one. There are a couple that I think that we would like to read, but please, I saw your hand first, so please come right up.
Thank you. My name is Matt Eiler. I was actually on the committee when they were doing the NBR zoning, when we were trying to figure out what would be best. The intent of the zoning was to increase greater density in the core, walkable core. And I know that the original zoning had 4 stories on it, but then they ended up reducing it to 3 because of some controversy or whatever. But I guess I'm just here to say that I'm in a general sense in favor of this project for the reasons that I think it precisely suits what the zoning intends. It's the mixed use building. It other than the 2-foot height variance, which I believe is because it would facilitate their solar panels, but I'm not positive about that. But I think that, we desperately need more housing in the village. I know that they are intending to comply with the affordable housing regulations that we put in place here in the village. So I just think, when you create the zoning and you're trying to get developers to come in and do what the zoning prescribes, I think the fact that they're basically doing that is something to be generally supported.
Thank you.
You said walkable.
What did it?
You said walkable, not walkable.
Well, there's just, what do you mean?
Sorry, there's no sidewalk.
Well, I'm sure there will be.
Well, we're not finished yet, so
Yeah.
it's at this juncture.
I just meant in proximity.
Sidewalk on the other side of the room.
So the next, is anyone else here to speak to it? Yes, ma'am, if you would please come up. Okay, let's pay attention. Pay attention to the.
All right.
Hi there.
I'm Christy DeBoer, Executive Director of the Wallkill Valley Land Trust. I came today to inform everyone that the proposal, as far as we've been informed, does not impact the conservation easement for the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail at all in a negative manner. Absolutely want to see the plans as they come together. But we were approached and asked for clarification to make sure, and doing a connection onto the rail trail there wouldn't be at all a negative impact nor a violation of the conservation easement.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, again, your last name was,
DeBoer, DEBOER. Executive Director, 14 years and counting.
wow. Thank you very much. We do appreciate it. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? Yes, sir, if you would, please, come on up.
Hello,
Hi there.
I'm Daniel Scherer. I own a number of properties in the village that I rent out to college students. This project would be in direct competition with that. And despite that, I'm absolutely in favor of this project. I just want to mention that Governor Hochul sent out something as part of her housing compact, noting that New York State is in a housing crisis. It says over the last 10 years, our state has created 1.2 million jobs, but only 400,000 new homes. Outside New York City, rents have increased 40 to 60% since 2015. I see that also. I see the rents increasing, and I see increasingly students that maybe 5 years ago would head back to New York City or wherever they were from. They're looking to stay in this area. Some are getting involved in the growing movie business that's here in this area. Some are involved in music. I have one student who took a job with the chip manufacturing in Poughkeepsie. People want to be in this area, and I think creating housing is absolutely vital. And I urge you to approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak to this application? Is there anyone online? Okay, so we did receive a number of letters that will be made part of the file and will be available that we're speaking in favor. Many of them repeating some specific points. So rather than go through each and every one of them, we're going to take the two exceptions here that I think everyone has a copy of these. Okay. So just to make sure that everyone is aware of it, this one says to the New Paltz Village Planning Board, I commented in prior meeting about the need for bicyclists to have a safe way to get from the east side of 32 to the rail trail. I hear that a bike pathway separate from the pedestrian walkways was added, but I can't seem to locate it on the site plans. Could the applicant kindly clarify where this is located? I very much appreciate this improvement for the safety of the community. Additionally, I feel that a fully brick facade would fit in more with the historic feel of the village. Thank you for your consideration. Joanna Dempsey and Eric Keeling. So as you come up here, we'll certainly want to know more about the clarification for this individual, so we can clarify where that bike path is. The next one is it's rather lengthy. It is from Rosemary Saldon Pawson, and I apologize if I mispronounced the name. This individual says they reside in the historic district near the application's proposed project. After examining the applicant's environmental assessment form, I'm concerned that the project could create the following substantial negative impacts: producing stormwater runoff onto neighboring properties, strain existing water lines and sewage treatment plants, dramatically encroach upon, disturb, or alter existing wetlands, substantially increase traffic, impact species of special concern, result in the destruction or removal of aquatic vegetation. Further, I kindly ask that you do not approve the proposed hours for construction. The applicant has requested permission to construct 12 hours a day, Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. This is excessive and would cause significant disturbances to the neighborhood, residents, schools, historic district, and businesses, especially if the project could take more than a year to complete. regarding the applicant's request to exceed the NBR height requirements. I'm not aware of how the zoning board of appeals ruled, but I encourage you to keep the project within the NBR limits. Having viewed the zoning board's meeting where the applicant stated its reason for increase in height, it became apparent that the applicant's argument centered on their desire to literally be able to charge more rent. This seems to blatantly go against the community's desire to provide affordable housing. Further, as you know, the NVR rules were adopted in the aftermath of the Zero Place project, which many residents in the historic district opposed. One major reason for the opposition was the height of the project, which far exceeded anything in the area. These rules were then approved by the village board. Talked about the change that was made following that. Since this is the first project under the new NBR zoning rules, I'm concerned that it would set an unfortunate precedent that would invite future applicants to routinely request similar variances going forward. In this regard, I wish to call attention to the statement on the AV variance application, page 3, item 3E. There, the applicant argues that the NVR guidance does not recognize, quote, market standards for commercial ceilings and residential ceilings as a calculation of building valuation and thus project viability, unquote. This seems to call into question the viability of any conforming project constructed in the NBR corridor. I therefore kindly request that you require the applicant to stay within the current height limitations, thus keeping with the NBR advisory committee's desired future vision for this emerging corridor. Any comments on that? Everyone has a copy of that. So let's make sure that you take a look at that, if you would, please. So are there any other people who wish to speak to this application and in public hearings? No? So with that in mind, I would like to get a motion to close the public hearing for PB 2211.
Question
Yes.
for that, Jeff? We are, we're still waiting to hear, we're going to hear from our traffic consultants. We haven't discussed the traffic study yet.
Correct.
And there's a lot of attention around that issue in particular, and probably others as we continue. Is there any reason we wouldn't consider leaving the public hearing open until such time as we think more of these details have been discussed in public meetings on board?
That is certainly an option, and if the board would like to do that, then we can certainly make a motion to extend this application until, and we're gonna have to give me the until ending there.
For the trailer. But I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, we had spoken about this last time, that you wanted to open this public hearing because we knew that it was gonna extend several weeks, or unless you, I mean, I don't
Yeah,
think it's appropriate to close
I
it right
think
now.
that's a good idea too.
I wouldn't feel comfortable closing the public hearing today.
Yeah.
But I mean, we talked about it last time, starting it early so that you can get feedback,
Okay.
and I don't think we're far enough along if that's the time.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. Okay. So then I would like to look at Autumn, do you have the letter that came in by email?
How exactly are we required to be about the extension?
Remember,
So,
Ashley said we can, I think last time she said that we don't have to bring it, we can extend it.
Adjourn it to-
Adjourn it to- So we don't have to necessarily bring it up next time, but we can say
Right,
adjourn.
you could say
till 3
adjourn
days from now.
till, I think our next meeting is April 4th. Following that, it would be April 18th. So we could adjourn it until April 18th. That would give us 2 full meetings to gather further public comments and to listen to information. Do you have that?
The other letters?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it readable? I mean, is
Yeah,
it long? Okay.
It's from Lane Tobish, resident of 136 North Chestnut. She says, "Good evening. My concern to the Trail Link LLC project is that I live across the street of 136 North Chestnut Street in the Village Arms condominiums. Most of these apartments have a mountain view, and it is a selling point. The project could affect the resale of these properties. Also, it will ruin my own view of Mohonk Mountain, and I enjoy watching the sunset every day from my living room window. This will be a major change in my lifestyle. I'm very concerned that the rooftops of this project will ruin that view. It may seem trivial, but it is not for me. It will change the whole aesthetic of my apartment and I will not be very happy. Sincerely, Elaine.
Okay.
Can we ask them to fly balloons early?
When we get to that, we can speak to them about getting something that would provide an approximation of the height. So,
Just for clarification, sorry, they did get the variance from,
No, sorry.
okay.
they
Not
have
yet.
not.
No, they have not.
Okay, they're fine.
Okay, so let's look then to get, are we agreed that April 18 would be 2 sessions, 2 meetings that would give us time for further public comments and considerations? Is that acceptable?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, then what I would like to do is I'd like to get a motion to adjourn the public hearing, not close it, but to adjourn the public hearing until April 18, given the issues that have recently arisen and the comments that we wish to receive, further comments.
Second. So moved.
All-
Okay, second before the first, but that's all right.
Like a motion, please?
I'm sorry.
So moved.
So moved.
Second,
All right.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So
Thanks.
this is still open, the public hearing is still open for any further public comments until April 18. Okay, so thank you to everyone who did comment. We do appreciate it. And we are certainly open to hearing more public comments. Now we're going to move to the application review section of our meeting, and the first application review is PB 2215 123 Main Street, Southern Acquisition Company. As we have spoken, that we are just bringing this into compliance with the regulations. So if you would like to step up, please. What we are looking to do then is hear anything further from you, maybe new, as I search for something.
No, we're okay with the resolution and we really don't have anything more to add.
Okay,
I saw that. We can't do it.
so our attorney did want me to read this note. The applicant's attorneys have previously requested certain modifications to the resolution. It has been modified in response to some of these modifications, but others were not appropriate. In particular, they proposed adding a statement that the site plan approval cured the notice of violation and stop work order, and that all potential fines shall be rescinded. The planning board does not have jurisdiction to make such a determination or rescind those fines. So we are going to review the draft resolution, and the basics are, it gives a summary, identification of the property, identification of the plans and submittals, then goes further into the procedural history, and does state and highlight that public hearing was convened on December 20, 2022 and closed on that same date. It was subsequently determined that certain adjoining property owners were not provided notice, so a second public hearing was scheduled and duly noticed. This public hearing is convened on March 21st, 2023. Goes through the findings and the resolution of approval and the specific conditions that we need to go over, and everyone does have a copy of this, I believe. Specific conditions, this resolution approves only the clearing of approximately 4,430 square feet of an approximately 4,430 square foot area in connection with maintenance of a drainage ditch that has already been done. This resolution does not authorize any further activities, including but not limited to further disturbance or clearing or the removal of any additional trees or vegetation prior to engaging in any such activities. The applicant must first receive all necessary permits and approvals in accordance with the village code. And then it goes through the general conditions that we are familiar with, including all fees need to be paid. And then it comes to the point of bonds necessary and so on. Are there any comments that we need to make to this? Any additions, any subtractions, anything that you would like to speak about? No? Okay. So with that in mind, we're going to move to an approval of, with this resolution of approval for the site plan for 123 Main Street. So I'd like to get a motion to approve this resolution for the approval of the site plan for 123 Main Street. So motion. Second.
Second.
And now we will have our project coordinator to do a voice vote.
Zach Bianchi,
Aye.
Rebecca. Aye. Rich Soto,
Aye.
Cal Karen,
Aye.
Harriet Dillon, oh. Chair John Lind.
Aye. So it appears that the motion has passed and it has been approved. There we are. Thank you. So we will now move to PD 2220, 29 South Chestnut Street, Bonacou Brewing Company, Floyd Lipton. And I will be recusing myself, and Zach, you will take over.
Yeah, I did it last week.
I thought you did a great job. I was listening. Sounded fine.
Fine and great.
Let me see where I have. So before we go through the resolution of approval, I'd like to just review the revised plan and to everyone have a chance to look at that site plan. Or do we have a?
We were waiting to see from last time to this time if there were comments from, we got the comments back and they said it was fine.
Right.
The last set of drawings just added the fence in the back.
Mhm.
Did everybody get a chance to look at that? Yeah. Print a big copy.
Yeah.
I got
Yep. Great. And so the board has no comments on the fence. And in that case, I think we can go on to going over the resolution of approval. So this is a resolution of approval to change the use of an existing barn from storage to farm brewery, which is an artisanal use. And there are some specific findings that I believe the attorney wanted us to highlight. So specifically, planning board makes the following findings with respect to certain requirements in the B2 district regulations. The streetscape standards under Village Code 212-13 F3 are met by the existing sidewalk and street trees, which will remain. Bicycle lane is not necessary as there is not presently a bicycle lane in front of the property or neighboring properties in this area. 2, the conditions do not permit safe or strict compliance with the requirement in Village Code 212-13 F10 for a stub connection to access future parking in adjacent lots due to the site configuration and of the subject property and surrounding vegetation. 3, the exterior lights for the farm brewery are shown on the plan and are designed and located in such a manner as to prevent objectionable light and glare from spilling across property lines in compliance with Village Code 212-13 F11 and the Village of New Paltz outdoor lighting standards. 4, interior parking lot landscaping is not necessary under Village Code 212-13 F14, given the small size of the parking lot, which has been in existence for several years, and the need for vehicles to safely maneuver on the site. 5, exterior parking lot landscaping is adequate under Village Code 212-13 F14, and the parking area is appropriately screened from the street. And finally, street furniture and public waste receptacles are not necessary under Village Code 212-13 F15 in this area. Moving on, there were also a few specific conditions. 1, prior to the signing of the plans, the elevations shall be revised to comply with HPC's recommendations for contrasting trim color to the satisfaction of the HPC. 2, the fence adjacent to the building shall be maintained in good repair to provide visual screening from the residential properties located to the west of the site. 3, the front or more aesthetically attractive side of the fence shall face towards the neighboring properties and away from the subject premises. 4, this approval is for farm brewery, artisanal use, and the scope and contour of the proposal is described in correspondence from Lee A. Frizzell, architect, dated March 2nd, 2023. This approval hereby incorporates this correspondence by reference. This correspondence shall serve as the outer limit of the activities that can be carried out without amended approval being granted, including but not limited to the following. A, the brewery shall be for production use or for production only. The brewery shall not be open to the public. The brewery will be brewing up to 7 barrels of beer per week. This will require up to 760 gallons of water per week, and the water usage will be spread evenly throughout the week. Only 540 gallons per week of gray water will be generated as sewage. D, a maximum of 3 employees will be working in the brewery. E, water and sewer connections will remain as they currently exist. The only change to the water service will be the addition of a backflow prevention device. F, applicant shall comply with any applicable disinfection and pressure testing requirements of the water system to meet Ulster County Health Department regulations. G, there will be no changes to the sidewalks and the curbs. H, there will be no food processing or food service. Specific condition 5 is all disinfection and pressure testing for the water system, if any, shall be as acceptable to the Ulster County Health Department. 6, new site lighting shall utilize full cutoff luminaries and shall not exceed IEA lighting levels / International Dark Sky Association area recommended illuminance levels. And those are all the specific conditions. And so could I get a motion to approve this resolution of approval, please?
Second.
Okay, and Autumn, could we do a roll call vote?
Lugaka.
Aye.
Rich Stover.
Aye.
Raquel Karen.
Aye.
Terry Dillon.
Aye.
Becky Lickett.
Aye. All right, and that is all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Hopefully you'll be able to enjoy some by the end of the year.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Zach. Appreciate it. Welcome. So now we're going to move to the next application review, which is PB 2305, 1618 Mulberry Street, Andrew Davis. So we have worked with you and we've cleared up most of the issues. Application for subdivision approval to consolidate 2 existing lots, 30.21 and 0.39 acre parcel into 1.6 lot. Parcels located in R3 residential district, no construction is proposed. So at that point, we are really going to be looking at the this draft resolution, which everyone has received, including the findings, specific conditions. First question is, everyone had an opportunity to look at this?
Yep.
Okay. So going through here is a standard. It talks about the application summary, identification of the property, identification of the plans and submittal. It then goes through the procedure history and the findings. And there is one area that actually our attorney would like for me to read here. So it says, although this project can be characterized generally as including a subdivision component, it is in actuality simply the elimination of an internal lot boundary and the merger of the adjacent two lots. Thus, it is not a quote subdivision plat containing residential units unquote that requires a subdivision recreation set aside or fee in lieu under village code. And it says, although the planning board finds that the village has a need for public parkland and recreation facilities, including improvement of existing recreation areas, this subdivision does not present a proper case for requiring park or parks suitability located for recreational purposes, as this application involves the removal of a lot and the property is already improved with the residence that will be converted from a two-family dwelling to a one-family dwelling. Thus, the subdivision will not contribute to thus the subdivision lot consolidation will not contribute to the village's need for public parkland and recreational facilities. It then goes through and talks about the resolution of approval. Specific conditions are pretty standard. Talks about prior to the signing of the subdivision map, the map shall be revised to change the label on the existing two-family dwelling to read as follows. Existing two-family dwelling to be converted to one-family dwelling without construction. It's no encroachments by the neighboring properties are being authorized or approved by the resolution, regardless of whether such encroachments are shown on the subdivision map, including but not limited to the encroaching building on the adjacent property to the west. Application involves converting an existing two-family dwelling to a one-family dwelling. Existing second dwelling unit shall not be occupied unless the applicant obtains approval from the planning board to convert the residence back into a two-family dwelling or to allow an accessory dwelling unit. Then it goes to the general conditions. And they're all the standard items that we have seen many times. And so we come to the end of it, and what I would like to do is to get a motion to approve this resolution of conditional approval, preliminary and final subdivision lot consolidation, application number PB 2305, with of course the caveat that the items that were mentioned here in the specific conditions need to be fulfilled before granting this full.
Yes. Just a clarification, special conditions,
Yes.
specific conditions. Number one, where you're asking us to, with the add to the description of the two-family being converted to the one-family without construction. Now, where does that fit in? Well, why did you add without construction? It almost seems contradicting. We're telling you we're converting from a two-family to a one-family, but we're saying there's no construction involved in that. Is that exterior construction?
Correct.
Should we clarify that by saying exterior construction?
If we make that move, then we're going to have to wait until our attorney comes back.
We can't pencil it in tonight.
Correct.
Okay, I understand. So, and as long as that doesn't put any limitations on Mr. Davis as far as being able to renovate his.
No, interior is fine. Yeah, you can renovate your interior without any issues. It is without any further exterior construction that would violate it to create something larger than what it is.
Yeah. So again, as long as we're not limiting Mr. Davis to his interior renovations or actually getting building permit, period.
No, it would not prevent you from doing that. And then you would just simply go to the building department and pull the permit based upon this resolution of approval, and they would grant you the building permit, and they would have the specific limitations. If you came to him with a plan to add more onto the building, that would be something that you would have to take up with the department based upon this.
Okay, so we'll add those words. And then condition number 2 and 3, you would like to see those in full note form, just as they're recited on the
Not number 2.
I was emailed a copy of the resolution. I got a chance to review it, and I just wanted to make sure. I know, well, there were, say, Discovery Institute, we were given specific notes
Right.
that you wanted
Right.
Verbatim.
Right.
In this case,
No.
okay,
These are specific conditions, but they're, for instance, the number 2,
yeah,
it just states that we're not, no encroachments are being authorized. You don't have to have that on there. It's just simply a statement that this is not authorizing any encroachments.
good.
Um,
No note form.
Right.
Thank you.
And then number 3, it just simply states the critical part is the existing second dwelling unit shall not be occupied unless the applicant obtains approval from the planning board to convert the residence back into a 2-family dwelling or to allow an accessory dwelling unit. Getting an accessory dwelling unit is a separate process. For instance, if you wanted to use that as an apartment, as an accessory dwelling unit, there's a process that you would have to go through. You'd have to come back here. You'd have to have the building department inspected, and you would have to meet certain standards and codes in order to have it as an accessory dwelling unit. So it just simply states that we're not allowing you to do that with this. But that if you would want to do that, you would have to go through the standard procedure to get that approval.
An informative statement.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
good.
Yeah.
I think that just tails on the conversation we ended with last week, and we were just, when your applicant clarified that his tenant's leaving on March or whatever. Yeah,
Right,
just
gotcha.
sure.
Okay,
All good?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay. So with that in mind, I'd like to get a motion to approve the resolution of conditional approval for the preliminary and final subdivision lot consolidation for application number PB 2305.
So moved.
Second? Second. And then we're going to have our project manager do a voice vote, please.
Zach Bilecki,
All right.
Rachel Lagarde. Aye. Rich Soto.
Aye.
Michelle Karen.
Aye.
Chair John Lynn.
Aye. So the motion is approved. The resolution is now approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll make that addition to the map and then revise the date to this approval.
Correct.
Okay, good. Those are the only map changes. We'll get you your final prints.
Wonderful.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
and I'll be in touch in case there are any final fees. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you. So the next application review is PB 2306, 711 Church Street, Jessica Cruz. So rather than describe it, I'm going to have the applicant make the description.
So we're applying for a special use permit so that we can open a cat cafe at 11 Church Street. Currently, we have one open in Main Street Beacon, and we have in our 2.5 years open helped facilitate adoptions of 450 cats. So we're hoping to be able to bring that same idea to New Paltz.
So when you say cat cafe, can you give us a little more specific description?
Yep. So our space is divided into 2 sections, one where people can come in and purchase beverages and pre-made baked snacks from what's it called?
Where it's fine.
Yeah, from Bakersdale, from somewhere else that we wholesale in. And then we host shelter cats in the other section from Hudson Valley Animal Rescue that people can come in and spend time with and are also made available for adoption through, again, Hudson Valley Animal Rescue.
And just sorry, I'm sorry this is the space that was previously the Arrowwood Outpost.
It's like
Augusta's. Commissary.
Yeah.
Are the cats in cages or?
Nope. So we have
to roam around?
exactly. So basically the space is divided by a wall between the two sections. And the one section we have our cafe and the other section is entirely open for the cats. Currently we have spaces where they can kind of hide away when they're not feeling up to interacting with the public as much, but the whole space is free and for them to roam as they choose.
And people can just sit there and pet the cats?
Exactly.
Are dogs allowed?
On dogs.
No dogs allowed at all?
In the cafe area within reason, whatever the health department would permit, but it's the safety issue with the cats, so we wouldn't be able to let dogs inside that area.
What about mice?
You gotta take care of them.
How long has your space in Beacon been open?
So we opened November 14th, 2020.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So this is similar to the cat cafe in the city.
Yep, similar.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of different ways that
Right.
they can operate, but it's the same concept overall. People come in, we do an admission to hang out with the cats, and then they're also made up for adoption as well.
That's the cutest thing.
Appreciate it.
It's really interesting.
What kind of kitty litter do you use?
Tiny cats. Personal choice.
Another question.
Good question.
Given that there's another location already, we would assume that there's Department of Health regulations or
Yep, so we
carefully monitoring the difference between the cat section and the food service section and all that.
Yep, so we've already spoken with, I believe Corey Keisler, who is the senior health inspector with the Ulster County Health Department. And he says that as long as there's a solid wall dividing the two, similar to what we have in Beacon, then it wouldn't be a health department issue.
Sorry, I was so hurt. So you can't get snacks from the cafe and bring them in and eat them with the cats?
So the health department hasn't told us that that's a problem. Currently, that's how we do it because people are purchasing the items inside the cafe area and then on their choice choosing to bring them in with them.
You sell treats for the cats?
We have a little gumball machine that people can get treats with.
Great.
I'm not even a cat person.
And all of a sudden you want to be there.
Yeah, I'm like, I just got a dog a month ago.
Yeah.
You
We do
kidding?
half and full hour increments, so just come and be a cat person for half an hour.
There we go. That works too. So just quickly to go through the summary, this is an application for a special use permit
Yes.
to establish an 1,100 square foot retail business or service not otherwise mentioned, and that's a key, service not otherwise mentioned. A cat cafe in an existing 5,156 square foot mixed use building. The proposed cafe will replace a portion of an existing restaurant space on the first floor. The existing building also contains following uses that will remain, and it talks about the restaurants and the apartments and a retail space in the basement. This is a type 2 action. It is going to require a referral to the Ulster County Planning Board as a reoccupancy reuse of an existing structure because there's no channelized access to state or county roads. There is also no curb cut or access to the road. There will be a public hearing that will be required. There are some issues and I believe you've received this from our attorney. If you have not, then please talk to our project manager. She can get you this information specifically. Ulster County records indicate the property is owned by NP Church Street LLC. An owner's endorsement needs to be signed by an appropriate officer or manager member of the LLC and note their title. The SUP narrative should be updated to address the specific criteria for a retail business not otherwise mentioned. And this is in the village code, and there's a specific area that you will have to go to the village code in order to understand it. And it quote says, quote, such business shall be reviewed for its ability to function without negative impacts such as traffic and noise, so no driving in with the cats, on neighboring properties. Off-street parking and loading requirements will be drawn from the most comparable retail activity for which standards have been established. I can't think of a comparable retail activity. Maybe just a cafe. Yeah.
Traffic
Yeah.
and the whole.
Site plan indicates there are certain pre-existing non-conforming conditions, including parking and the rear yard setback. Our zoning head should be asked to do a zoning code review and confirm any non-conformities are legal pre-existing nonconformities and indicate whether the landscaping or other new B2 requirements are triggered since no exterior changes or construction are proposed. This is all going to be available to you. Just, just reach out to our project manager. She will get you the complete status of this. It's essentially a plan of I do this, then this, then this, and this. And having opened one in Beacon and knowing their process, it's going to be very similar. So it shouldn't be anything unusual. So we have listened to your presentation. I'm sorry.
This question, I don't know exactly how it's, what the different distinction is that makes this a special use permit versus a particular use that would be defined in the code, like a food service.
I think it's just something that's not mentioned.
I think that the joining of the two, if there were two separate businesses and there was a wall which you could not enter in, like if you go to the cafe, and I'm assuming that you go in the cafe, you can enter through an entrance that's within the cafe. I think were they two separate businesses with two separate entrances and exits on the outside and nothing on the interior, then yes, that would apply. But I think because they have that,
Shared
that's the
space,
reason. Yeah, because it is, yes,
It
it's
just
shared
falls
space.
into like the not mentioned, non-categorized.
Okay. So we have listened to your presentation. Next motion we're going to need is we're going to.
I think that because I know who your landlord is and he's obviously had shared spaces before, so he's able to facilitate in terms of like transferring or applying where he has to document that you're applying on his behalf or whatever. He should
Excuse
be.
me, I'm actually the landlord. Love you guys, and I love the idea. Like you, I'm not really a cat person, but I think the idea is to watch
Well,
my
you
cat
know,
right behind it.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
But anyways, I already have signed a notarized thing giving them the proxy ability to make this application and to make the building permit application as well.
Okay. Okay.
So to clarify, it has your name on it, and the LLC name on it, if the LLC is your property. I'll send you that.
Oh, okay. All right, back to Ulster County we go.
Back to Ulster County we go.
I mean, Ulster Savings, rather.
Ulster Savings, there you go. There you go. So I'd like to get a motion to classify this as a type 2 action under seeker. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So we have now classified that. Now I would also like to get a motion to refer this to the Ulster County Planning Board. Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So this will then be referred to them. When is the next time the Ulster County Planning Board will review this? First meeting of the month in April?
I think it's gonna be the,
I think it's the day after our
yeah,
first meeting.
the day after our meeting.
April.
April 5th. So what will probably happen is,
Actually, this isn't enough time to get it to, you might be able to get it to them in time, if they have a 2-week off.
okay, what do you need from the applicant in order to get that sent?
I think we have most everything once we have the unresolved release.
Okay. So just again, tomorrow, reach out as soon as you can so we can get this done and move it along. We do have to set an escrow. We're going to set the escrow at $1,000. I'd like a motion to set the escrow at $1,000. Someone else. Second, all in favor? Aye. So we've taken care of really all of the businesses, all the business that we need to. These issues that we read through will be available. She can tell you exactly what needs to be done so we can get this moving along fairly quickly for you because this is kind of an easy one and we like those.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is good.
With the public, I'm sorry to interrupt, with the public hearing, can that be set for the next meeting? Because we can get all those letters out.
No, I understand, but we have to get some response back from the Ulster County Planning Board before we can really set a public hearing. If they disagree with it for whatever reason, we'd have to work through that. Not that we think that they will, but which unfortunately we just can't right now. You'll probably be on the public hearing for April 4th, April 18th. Yeah, you'll probably be on the public hearing for the 18th and probably clearing up anything in that time in the first part of May. So we'll move you right along. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we are now moving to PB 2211 137 Chestnut Street trail link. Everyone is understanding of the summary. We all know what this is about. So, we're going to take a very short break while, for a moment here.
I have
Oh, yeah.
on the second. How do we move while we're on break?
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem.
Oh.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
It was intermittent for me,
Yeah.
but I'm connected now, so.
Sorry that it was for about 2 years, but I've got a stream on the.
I would just. Yeah, I tried to turn the Wi-Fi off and on again and just keep trying to get it back.
Okay, so in terms of the next steps, we need to review any comments from our engineer Dennis Larios, who's here and is going to speak to specifically this application. We're then going to review comments from the Capital Environmental from Greg Fleischer, and then we're going to review comments from DTS Providence, Carlito Holt. So as we did note earlier, there's a general memorandum in which Dennis has noted that the Village Department of Public Works expressed concerns related to project proposed to connect to the Stop 32 pump station and its discharge ports main. It runs southerly to the village gravity sewer on Broadhead Avenue. The concerns related to operational condition and reliability of this pump station. In this regard, the village has asked us to evaluate conditions of the Stop 32 pump station installed in 1963. Evaluation would include tributary flows, capacity, system reliability, controls, and overall condition. So really what we want to do at this point is we're going to have Mr. Larios speak specifically to this application. I think these are the most pertinent points of our meeting tonight is to hear from him. And so with that, Mr. Larios, would you like to join the meeting, please?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so do you have specific comments as are related to this application regarding the pump, the Stop 32, and the process that the applicant has previously mentioned for mitigating some of the flow to improve the viability of the application and of the building itself? So please go right ahead.
And I did have the opportunity to speak to the applicant's engineer a day or two ago. But the site currently, or when Gateway occupied the site, they pumped to a gravity manhole in front of the car wash that flowed by gravity over to the Stop 32 pump station. The initial application here proposed putting in a new pump station and pumping into the village force main. It's about an 8-inch ductile iron pipe that runs about 2,700 feet to the south to Broadhead Avenue. Goes to Mulberry, then it makes a turn, then goes down the rail trail to Broadhead. The Public Works Department, and we agree, are reluctant to let anyone share a pressure line. It can be dangerous if a check valve fails at at the village pump station or at the private pump station could create a flood of sewage, and we would like to see a different approach with respect to that share attempt, that proposal to share the force main, which was a proposed mitigation to some extent. It would have made more of an indirect discharge to, would affect the operation of our pump station at times, but it's generally only allowed under, when you have a designed low pressure sewer system, which the village does not have. So we rather see some improvements to the pump station, the village pump station, and I did speak to the engineer for the project and suggested also that he may be able to get out by gravity to the manhole or to the village system, since the building's going to be a little bit higher and we'll have new plumbing, but that would have to be evaluated by the applicant. Would be to their benefit if they can get out by gravity. The main thing is as you go through seeker, the village wants, the Public Works Department and the administration wants an evaluation of that pump station, which really hasn't had any kind of serious look since 1992, I believe. And there's no good record drawings of the pump station that have been found by Public Works. So I think and I don't want to make any conclusions about the pump station. I think it's not a capacity issue as much as a system reliability issue, condition of the controls, the lack of a third pump that would be a standby. And what's happening with pump stations all over in the last few years, in particular, is flushable wipes are being used more and more frequently by the general public, and they're getting into pump stations and clogging the impellers. And the pump station doesn't have any screening device ahead of the pumps to catch those flushable wipes, which like to tie knots around pump impellers, and hopefully will be outlawed soon, but they're very popular and causing problems in wastewater collection conveyance systems all over the place. But I think we looked at the site plan, but we had some preliminary comments in December, which were addressed to the planning board, and the project as a whole from a site engineering point of view is sound. So it's really the sewer issue, and probably there'll be a few details with respect to stormwater, but the whole approach to that was very much, sound and acceptable. So really, it's a pump station, the village pump station.
Thank you. So, any immediate comments from you, impressions, things that you would like to make publicly known that we need to cover?
Yeah, I'm gonna just ask, Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna ask Charles Gottlieb, our attorney, just to come up for this part of it. We like to keep him in the back because we pay him by the word. So.
Sure. I'll be brief, I guess.
That's it. Okay. No, so, no, Charlie is working with us on the project, and he also happens to represent the client to our north, who I believe also has a project in front of the board. And we've actually been in contact with them through Charlie's office in regards to this issue, because when it was raised by Mr. Larios, we wanted to have a comprehensive solution, because we knew that, this was going to now be studied and see how we would participate in it. So Charlie did have a conversation with his other clients, and we discussed it with Mr. Arnold and with Mr. Bowe, and we've kind of come to some understanding of, what we want to help do. And I'm going to let Charlie kind of speak to that a little bit if you can.
Yeah, so the consensus is that a report assessing that pump station's viability and setting forth any repairs or replacements that might need to happen. Seems like that's the next step that has to happen. Realizing that it impacts both projects and the review for both projects, both applicants would be willing to pay a pro rata share towards that report. And so we could just figure out what the problem is, right? We're not yet talking about pro rata shares of the actual improvements because we don't know what that is yet. But certainly the report, because it's in both applicants' best interest to get that report done so we can see what mitigation has to happen and this board can deliberate on that. And speaking with Justin and also the engineers for the other developments, some thoughts, and I think after we all come to an agreement that the report has to happen, which I think there is, I think it would be a good idea for Dennis to get in the same room with Justin and then Ken from LRC, who's the other project engineer, and kind of brainstorm about solutions. One thing that was interesting, and I am 100% not an engineer, so Justin stopped me, is maybe a different location for the pump station if it has to be replaced so that the existing pump station can operate, while if there needs to be a new one that can be put into place and both projects can gravity feed into that pump station. All alternatives and ideas that would probably likely come up in Dennis's report. So I think it would be, I understand your attorney is not here, but this board or the village, whoever it has to be, could commission Dennis's office to start the report. This board and Dennis, I'm sure everyone's fine with the engineers putting their heads together and trying to understand the flows and what the issue is.
Thank you. That certainly clears up one of the hurdles that we anticipated. What we're going to have to do is to move through seeker before we can officially start this. And when we get into the seeker process, there is the opportunity to state that it has a negative, severely negative or slightly negative impact within the process before we can make it official. However, I think that if you would like to reach out to the engineer, knowing what we have to do, we will certainly get our village attorney involved so that we can make sure that we don't violate any guidelines or boundaries. And then we'll allow the engineers to speak in that language that nobody understands. And perhaps they can come to a decision about what needs to be done. From the meetings that I've attended, the process appears to involve initially an assessment, secondly, some recommendations on how to, or an assessment of what the problem is, a study and an assessment, then some recommendations on how to cure the problems. And I don't know how long that takes. And I don't know how we can make that an official body with recommendations that hold. That's just speaking in the legal term that I don't know. So we're going to have have our planning board attorney, Ms. Torrey, reach out to you. And so Autumn, please make a note that, and perhaps you and I and Ms. Torrey can get on a conference call tomorrow to discuss this part of it. And then we can have her reach out to you, and then we can, at that point, probably get people together.
Yeah, and one of the things I was thinking of, just so you know, and I'll talk with the story about it, is the report will likely set forth what is the mitigation that's needed for these two projects.
Correct.
And then that would become a part of your secret document, mandating mitigation as a condition.
Right.
So I'll talk with Ms. Torrey and Mr. Frank if we need to, and go from there.
That might be a good idea. Dennis, any comments on that?
No, I sound like a constructive approach. I know Justin pretty well, and I don't know the other firm very well yet, but sitting around the table and, discussing, I like the idea of maybe a different location for the pump station would be something that should be looked at. That's a good suggestion as well. I don't believe there's I think the village inherited this pump station from what's now the Village Arms when it was built. I don't think there's any land around it that the village has much control over. It's all squeezed right up against the state highway right away. Couple bollards there protecting the pump station, but the men don't have very good access to it to work on the pump station when there is a problem. That's another just due to the location, and how it's situated there. But I think there'll be solutions, and the village has the mayor's been attempting to secure some funding for work on the pump station, specifically through his congressional his representative, along with some other improvements out in that corridor on the creating a water line loop, which would benefit everybody in that corridor as well. So I know those funding requests have been made to the new congressman as well, Pat Ryan. So
Okay. Well, why don't we do this? First off, any comments by the board, any questions that you might have?
Just,
Go ahead, Barry. Why don't you go ahead?
I just think for the village engineer, I think it's crucial that the scope of the report be dictated by the village. There's probably more than one way to upgrade a 60-year-old pump station. And I think it's important that it be stated clearly that you have to protect our interest here. So, whatever you agree to in terms of the scope of the report, I think let's get that done so we don't have three engineers arguing about the scope of a report. I think you just dictate it, and I'm sure they'll do it.
I think along those lines, I think if that's the case, then it's in the village's interest to invest a little bit. Shouldn't be only on the applicant's dime if it's going to be determining the scope of future projects. So, but if you're willing to participate, but I just think if it's going to determine, how the NBR is developed, then we should invest collectively. That's just my take.
That,
I just wanted some clarification to understand how this affected the seeker process. So this report will have to be finished before we can complete our analysis or make our determination?
no, we can make a determination.
Okay.
And this will be part of the answer to that determination. So they can begin the study of the process concurrent with us moving through seeker, rather than waiting until we do it and then beginning with us all in awareness. And we'll have to get the final okay from our attorney.
Sure.
But based upon my experience, I think that they can begin this and they can run concurrently so that we get to work on this fairly rapidly.
That's great.
Anything else?
I just had a comment, I think similar to Terry and not understanding how the engineering will work, but in terms of the scope of the report, I think it's important that that be determined independently in the interests of the village. I don't necessarily agree the village should have to contribute to the cost if it's been offered by the two applicants. And further to that, I think any solutions that are proposed, I would like to think that in the interest of the village, those might be solutions that would address capacity that might go beyond these two applications. So I would not want the idea that these two applicants, potentially funding and influencing the report and potentially the solution, to limit the solution to only be one that would address the capacity that might be required of these two applicants. That, because we'll be back at having this discussion regarding a new development in the MBR, if that's the case.
So I think just so to clarify kind of where I think our heads in the Agway project are at, we would participate in a cost sharing and maybe the number is a third. We pay a third, they pay a third, the village pays a third, and the person that would be doing the study would be either Bernier and Larios or someone that Dennis would hire. It would be the village's report. It wouldn't be our report. It wouldn't be Agway's report. The report would study not just how we affect the system, but what's going on in totality with the system and how Village Arms and the other users that are already going into these pump stations are affecting it and what upgrades are necessary to continue being basically in the sewer business in this corridor. So that's kind of, the thought. And then I think what it also will do, and Dennis, please correct me if I'm wrong. What I think it also will do is it'll then possibly attribute from that report what the cost would be or what the pro rata would be for us, Agway, and any potential other users once the report is complete of what those upgrades would be for a either total system repair, replacement, improvements, et cetera.
Right.
So, and I think that then that kind of levels the playing field for everyone. Yeah.
It's not a report to benefit any
Sure.
applicant.
I think we're just kind of like trying to say, look, we understand the village probably needs this, like, because the system is aging and who knows when the next issue is going to happen that causes it not to work anymore. So, but we're in front of you, and so is Agway with the development project. So let's try to like help the process and move it along. And it may be the village board has to commission Dennis to do this and say, go. I assume they want to do that because they've kind of said, hey, let's look at this before we do anything. But I mean, that's kind of just, I think, our thought process of where we're coming from to help the process along and obviously contribute because we're asking you to do it sooner rather than later. So.
And one other thing to the village engineer, please include the force main as part of the review, not simply the pump station.
Yes, that's part of the system. And
Sure
affects.
Yep.
The northern or the southern, most southerly part of it is fairly new because of problems on Mulberry. We extended that force main down the rail trail to Broadhead maybe about 12 years ago. I think Roars Construction did the work because it was popping some manhole rims on Mulberry. But yes, the force main is integral to the operation of the pumping station and the size and friction losses and condition. Also, but BOCES probably 20 years ago or so, I don't know exactly when, but they were allowed to connect over into the village system, which also goes to the pump station. So they pump to the pump station as well. So.
Yeah. All right, so what I will do is tomorrow I will try to speak to our attorney. I'm going to try to speak to the mayor and to the village attorney and try to determine how do we create this study group. Sure. And how to get it activated, and then we'll try to figure out how to reach out to you guys, and feel free to reach out to Ashley as well. Yep. And this story can probably guide you based upon our discussions that we have, because I really don't know how it's going to work to determine that. So that's how we're going to deal with that. So what I would like to do now is see if we can move a little farther on. We'd like to get a review of some comments from Capital Environmental. Greg, if you would like to join us, please, and give us your thoughts based upon the studies that we asked you to do.
Good evening. How's the board tonight? Thank you for having me. Capital put together a brief memo just regarding plants, animals, water quality, and wetlands related to the application. We had 4 main points that we just wanted to bring up to the board. One is Corps of Engineers pre-construction notification, general conditions and compliance with those. Small issue with the site plan, same with the joint application form. And then just some small comments on the habitat assessment, nothing of any great significance, just more like some housekeeping with some of the documents that were provided. So with regard to the pre-construction notification, again, to just be in compliance with the general conditions, just need to provide just a little more information on the crossing for the western culvert, sort of that water course that's mapped by DEC. Just a plan with just a little bit more clarification on that. Just, are you spanning the bed and banks? Are you going to be filling? Just some basic information for that to just kind of fill out the PCN requirements. And we list 3 different general conditions and what we're looking for there. Again, there's a little bit of housekeeping sort of information related to the wetland delineation. It's all information I'm sure you guys have, or that you just got to add it to the document. It's nothing too crazy. The site plans also look good, but when moving from the demo and existing conditions plans to the as-built structures, I think you just need to better represent that the areas that you're crossing the wetlands, especially for the crossing in the west, that area still is technically regulated. So you just want to make sure you're noting that on the plans, even though you're going to be building over it, you're likely going to be spanning it. So just make sure the notation in that area just accurately represents what's going to be there post-construction. The joint application for permit, again, just sections 5 and 6, just add some missing information in section 5. It's all listed in our document. It's just all stuff that you have related to the project. And then for section 6, there's a few items, just a thorough description of the proposed work, especially related to the watercourse disturbance, if there is going to be one, any quantity of fill, if there's any trees that are going to be potentially cut for that process, a good description of the bridge in the descriptions, and just the soil and erosion and sediment control plans sort of differ from what's represented, which is only a silt fence. So just get a little clarification on that and just make sure they all sort of line up. And then I would just add, a lot of what we're asking for here is not to sort of burden the applicant in any way. They've done a good job with everything they presented. It's just for the record, when you're moving into seeker, you want to just make sure you're taking a hard look at all these sensitive receptor areas so that the village is just making sure that they're able to assess those accurately. And so to that end, we did ask just for a little bit of additional information in the habitat assessment, where we're sort of expanding to include the whole property, including that western corridor where we have the New York State DEC regulated water course running through, and the walkway over that. So if you could just expand that habitat assessment to include the whole property. And I think what's useful for the board is if you have a figure that shows the 3 different sort of ecological communities there, put your limited disturbance over it, show what impacts each community you have. And I think you meet your requirements there, especially as you're moving in towards seeker. And it's just a nice representational layout that can be provided to the town and for the public to view, and they can clearly see what those disturbances are. And that's really what the memo detailed. Does anybody have any questions?
Your conversation was a bit more in detail than the memo, which is good. So we want to make sure that we get the full complement of the discussion, which has both been recorded and which we'll be able to transcribe. But thank you. That's good and thorough. I appreciate it. Any comments from board members? Any questions?
When you looked at the area, did you think, just what do you think the chances are that the beavers would come back?
Sorry. Go ahead, please. Somebody answer. Go ahead.
I asked about whether you had an opinion on the possibility of the habitat supporting the return of beavers who were once there, more, I guess, toward in the Agway, as they're calling it, the Agway property. But there, if you look at the area there, there's evidence that they attempted to colonize part of that.
Oh, that's not something I've been made aware of. I don't know if the certainly first time I'm hearing of it. Does the applicant have anything to note about that historically? Are you guys aware of anything of that
Yeah.
nature?
I think that was mentioned at one other prior meeting. Our project ecologist did go back out to the site, the same one that did the wetlands and looked at the species and whatnot. He did look at that tributary 13 area. He did not see any concerns of beavers in that
Well, I
area.
know they're not living there now,
Yeah,
but they travel, they go back and forth. And I was curious. I mean, the Agway property has much more, you could actually see quite a few felled trees and chews there. It's connected.
That's a question in terms of not to name it, to know like anything that you're saying, but what, does this fall under a purview or is this part of the environmental? Just because we have so much stuff that we have to cover, so I'm just wondering, is the like environmental stuff part of this or because not that I don't support it, I'm just
Oh,
wondering.
they're a keystone species that.
No, I get that, but I'm saying in terms of like under the planning board or the environmental board, like where is it part of our, because we have 1,000
Yeah.
and part of the secret, okay, yeah, I was just asking.
It
I'm
did
sorry.
come up in a prior meeting and we were asked to study it and we did send the
Okay,
biologist out there.
I wasn't sure.
Do we have the comments from your biologist?
I believe they have been submitted on this issue previously and they were not in the habitat report as there were no findings of evidence of beavers in the site.
Yeah.
It's more on the Agway.
Right, okay. Can you, no, it's fine. Can you try to help us to look at the process, not just in individual, but in the whole, and just to kind of keep reminding us, and if you have any information, I think that would be helpful, because we tend to,
We don't want
and I don't want to use the word segment, but we tend to segment these areas of application. We probably need to look at it as one continuum as opposed to small, discrete individual areas.
Well, I mean, it's a watershed, so
Yeah.
it is all connected.
But I think that
It's
as
on one
a
part.
board, we tend to not look at it as all connected. So you can just kind of make sure we keep that as top of mind as we go into seeker, that would be appreciated.
Just to address the comments quick, I think,
Sure.
did you want to do that?
I was just going to mention that, yeah, we did share the letter with our wetlands project ecologist.
Mhm.
So we will be providing, formal responses, similar as we did in the
Right.
past. We are going to provide formal responses to these. Just an update regarding the Army Corps of Engineers. We mentioned we did submit our pre-construction notification on, I think it was January 23rd. So March 9th was our 45-day
45, yeah.
review period. We did
No
not
response?
receive any comment.
Okay.
We did not receive any response for them. So we have requested confirmation that is the case and the permit is self-authorizing it. So.
Okay, I'll speak to our attorney about that. Yeah, that's a good point. Anything else, gentlemen? No? On the environmental? Greg, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. We'll transcribe these notes and we may send them to you just to make sure that they correlate with what you found and what you were trying to impress upon us.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. So now we're going to move to comments from DTS Providence. Charlie, if you want to give us your rundown, and we all have a copy of this as well.
Might be helpful for you to come to the table here, Charlie, just in terms of the speaker, the microphone.
Evening, everyone. So on this application, we had done initial review of the traffic study and the site plan. And the major outcome of that was the applicant expanding the traffic study area. And I think it was your comment at the last meeting about expanding that. And, I think this kind of dovetails into some of the other things that we've been talking about tonight, and I'll hit upon that maybe towards the end of this, and it feeds into the next application that's on the agenda. But as far as the access and site circulation, we didn't have any additional comments. We just want confirmation on the utility easement that they're going to be reducing what's allowed to be in that easement. Right, there's sidewalk and benches and bike racks that are going to be above that utility, and we just want confirmation from Central Hudson that that's allowable. As noted, they did expand the study area to include 4 additional locations to the south along 32, essentially all the signalized locations as you go to the south down to Main Street. Although the traffic study did not, sorry, before I get to that, in the study, they included a number of other developments that are known that are going to be coming online to put into the background traffic. Coincidentally, one of the ones that was not included was the 145 North Chestnut or Agway. And I think that was because they didn't have that information at the time they did the study. So that'll kind of come back to what we'll discuss at the end. So as far as the analysis, it shows overall, the intersections that they analyzed have adequate capacity, operate adequate levels of service. The one that's most constrained is 32 on Main Street, which I think everyone would be expecting. Although their project doesn't show a large incremental change, I think one of the things that we have to think about is as you add each project in, the baseline keeps creeping up. So then when you add one project on top of that, it doesn't look like a lot. But if you started there and now you had 6 projects, the delta becomes a little larger. So what we're looking at is whether there's something that could be done to have a fair share contribution, or, similar to what they're saying on the sewer, where, your incremental impact on your one project may not be significant under seeker, but overall, when you look at that whole corridor, perhaps there's a contribution that can be made towards a future improvement that would facilitate all the development along that corridor.
And what would that future improvement look like?
I think we'd have to take a look at a more comprehensive study. And it could be a number of things, whether, it might not be physical intersection improvements like adding a light or a turn lane. It might be sidewalk improvements or other streetscape improvements, or, extending the bike lane. And I think the other aspect of all this is that since this is under state jurisdiction, you probably want the state at the table in that discussion, and you want to engage with them. Because at some point, what you also don't want is the state seeing all these permit applications coming in, and they're going to say, what's going on here? You guys are, approving a lot of projects, and we're getting a little concerned. We need to pump the brakes, and then they're going to take a negative approach to applications that are being proposed in the village. And we've seen it in other communities in the Hudson Valley where the DOT almost has a backlash against that particular municipality because they didn't feel like they were at the table when, these things were happening. So I think we just want to be strategic about how that's approached. As far as accident data, and I know that did come up on one of the general comments tonight, they did an accident analysis. They did not have the additional data in at the time that they prepared the updated study. So we will just need that additional data for the expanded study locations. They did a site distance analysis on both their driveway and the Rycor driveway that indicated that the on-street parking would conflict with sight lines. They have since taken the on-street parking off their plan, but they've also reprogrammed their development and their parking needs. So they are now proposing all 61 spaces on site, which meets the code requirements. We also checked it against Institute of Transportation engineer data. And it shows that it's adequate to support it. with respect to, one of the general comments that came out tonight was with respect to speed. And I think as part of any additional study, we should likely request that speed data is also recorded. And, that's a pretty simple exercise. You put the rubber hoses across the road, you leave them down for about a week, and they actually can record speed.
You hope I don't drive. I'm just kidding.
No, you hope they don't plow or someone cuts them up, but so that's one thing. Another general comment was with respect to sidewalks. And I think one of the benefits of these new applications coming in is that they're all proposing sidewalk along their frontage. And then going back to the speed, I think as you see these new developments come on and they engage the street front, that actually has a positive benefit towards speeds, because as you have more that engages the driver, they tend to slow down. So I think that's a good thing when you have a commercial corridor that has a lot of empty commercial spaces and it's kind of blighted, people tend to speed down that corridor. So I think part of that is going to come over the process. The other option is to petition the state to lower the speed limit, and that would be part of the speed data that you would have to provide from something that was done by potentially this applicant or maybe another applicant is still doing a study along the corridor.
I don't know if you were watching last or 2 weeks ago when we were talking about sending a message to the DOT. Like, is that what you would recommend the kind of steps be in terms of whether it be petitioning them to lower the speed limit, or we were also talking about what we were saying, like change it from 45, like, yeah, like we just, because that's obviously not up to the villages or the town's jurisdiction.
Right.
But is that kind of where we go via the village board to reach out? Do you think that sounded appropriate?
Yeah,
We were
that's
still loving and hearing
exactly the process. So you would actually formally petition the DOT on behalf of the village.
Okay.
They'd like to see some supporting data. They'll likely go off and do their own study.
Can we use one of like an existing report that, well, I guess we don't really.
You don't have
There's no speed data.
That's
So here's
it.
what I would have done if I were the supervisor of the town of Ulster from 2005 until 2010. I would have put a marked police unit out there. I would have pulled drivers over for speeding in the zone, but we wouldn't have written them tickets. We would have given them a warning. We would have taken those warnings and we would have had a number of warnings and gone to the DOT and said, we stopped X amount of drivers for going this speed in this zone, and gone to the DOT and said, even though it's 30 miles an hour in front of this property, because that's what it is, they're still going at 45 miles an hour because in front of BOCES, that's the speed. And that's how you effectuate it. Or you go out and you put the hoses down, or you get the traffic safety board out there. Those are the ways you do it, but it has to come from the village board. But that's the best
I'm
one.
just curious about.
Yeah, they have to get the petition DOT. That's the best and most effective approach. Now, the nice thing is we're in contact with John Riley from the DOT because we're working with them on a regular basis for this project. And I'm sure Agway is in the process of doing it as well. We can make suggestions to him and ask him who we should be in contact with, but we again would support that as we would support, increasing that pedestrian safety by extending sidewalks along 32. So these are all measures that we would support as well.
Okay.
But yeah, that was one of the comments we'll talk about as we go through it tonight and as we address the public comments. People are still speeding in front of the site in Village Arms and even Rycor. They just don't realize that speed has gone down. Either they're not paying attention or what, but they're still going till they hit Fran's Auto. I mean,
They don't respect the crosswalks at all.
No.
that crosswalk needs to be a lighted, flashing crosswalk.
Keep going in the middle.
I'd sooner die than walk in.
Should be an elevated crosswalk, if you want to be honest. You'll slow people down then when they lose the catalytic converters off the cars and the mufflers. You're taking the rest of them. Sorry. You get paid by the hour. I was just gonna say is the other thing is to consider traffic calming at particular locations. And, that could be something that, the DOT and even they get a little reluctant on the vertical elements because it's more difficult to maintain. But if you can justify something like a raised crosswalk at a particular location because you know it has a high pedestrian activity, that's something else that you could put in that petition to the state to look at. You could do curb extensions where you physically bring this, in this case, it would be the sidewalk out a little closer to the edge of the travel way. So it gives that narrowing effect of the roadway. And it also shortens the distance that the pedestrian actually has to be on the live lane. So things like that, that could be looked at, you know, in conjunction with the state.
What's a raised crosswalk?
It's about 3 to 4 inches, and it actually comes up at, it's like a speed hump, like an elongated speed bump, but it's got like a flat table because you can't have a curve. It's got to be flat. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But we reduced the speed on North Chestnut to probably 10 in order to accomplish that, I think.
So that, this all has to come from the DOT, and that request has to be made by our Village of New Paltz Board of Trustees.
Because that entire stretch is a state highway.
So moving on then, in terms of anything else, parking generation, loading vehicles.
Nope, parking was good and loading was good.
Okay. All right.
I had a couple, questions, maybe comments, maybe questions. That one of them, Carlo, you mentioned, which is that in tables, there's a no build in 2025 scenario, which incorporates projects that have yet to be approved. And then your differential or your variance is calculated on top of that no build, which again includes projects that have not been completed. So it sort of minimizes the impact of your project because of that baseline that is actually not even a baseline yet, because those projects aren't yet approved. So it might not, I looked at some of the numbers and some of them actually jump more like 8 or 10% or more, and some of them are smaller, but I would just encourage, if we wanted to be completely transparent about the impact of your project, to not necessarily look at the differential between the no build and at 2025 and yours, but to look at today and yours in those differentials. Is that typical, that approach?
So what we're looking at here, I've seen it done a number of different ways. But I think you're on track with what would generally you'd be looking to accomplish, where don't put all the applications in the no build, put them in the build. So you show what the actual incremental impact of everything is, but then if there is an improvement identified, each application is only responsible for their pro rata share. So for instance, say you identify an improvement that's $200,000 and the cumulative number of trips from all those developments is 200 trips, then maybe it's $1,000 a trip as a traffic mitigation fee for that particular application.
And another thought I had, maybe it's related to that, how to handle mitigation, is if you have an intersection that's already a D in its existing state, and the applicant suggests that the resultant state would also be a D. Now, if you look at D in the definition of D in the report, it says that that's ineffective. It's problematic in some way. They use the term ineffective.
Yeah. In their report?
Well, in the definition, I think, in whatever shared. So the question just is then, what is the responsibility of the applicant for something that would, like in our other language, we would call like a pre-existing condition, you know? But it's a worse D. It's a lot worse D actually in the report. So I'm just wondering how we reconcile considerations like that, when something's already a problem and we're approving something that makes it a bigger problem, but within the same letter grade.
So is the expectation that they would improve it to higher grade, or that they don't make
What's
it
that
any worse?
conversation? Yeah.
Which one is it? Yeah.
Yeah, so this is an age-old argument in the traffic engineering industry is what is allowable. I'd say generally, everyone says if it's A to C and you keep it in that A to C range, you're okay. If you're a D and you keep it at a D, you're okay. If you increase it to an E, that's where you start getting concerned. And obviously, if you take anything to an F, and if it's already an F and you're making it a worse F, that's problematic. There's other agencies that have much more explicit criteria, like the New Jersey Department of Transportation, where they say what percentage you're allowed to increase it based upon what level of service grade you're starting at. So New York State doesn't have that. It's much more subjective.
That's the type of thing that I would think we could be more informed by, and I'm asking these questions also because we have other ones.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
One other point.
To us to say like, well, what can we do to mitigate it? Is this going to be significant in our opinion?
It feels significant to ask someone to wait 80 something seconds to pull out of someplace.
Well, that's not a D, that'd be an F.
It's just less than 80 then, because that's the border. So anyway, just.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that.
I don't recall
went to
seeing
I found it.
Okay, sorry, I might have been using the guide as opposed to your results. The results on the worst one is 40 seconds. 43 seconds, 52 seconds.
Wait a minute, are the changes though, change in delay, no build, it's 2.4 seconds, 0.5 seconds.
But from the 2022 existing, for example, at 299 and 32, from the 2022 existing to the 2025 result, it would be from 36 seconds to 52 seconds.
But we're also projecting these out to the build condition. The build condition is if this project doesn't happen, right? We're looking at it into the future. And we talk about a 2% increase per year, which is industry standard, and kind of on the conservative, because we even state the New York State DOT traffic volume, of course, indicates a growth rate of approximately 1% for a 4-year period. We're doing it 2% per year. So it's a very conservative analysis that we did on this. So I think that we are really looking at the 2.4 seconds or the 0.5 seconds in relation to what the change would be.
Well, I think Carlito said that this is a conversation that is had in your world, that you could think of it as the difference between today and the result, or you could think of it as a difference between your result and what may happen between today and that result. I'm just thinking like today, when I wait 36 seconds, if everything that you're including happens, we wait 52 seconds. And partly what I serve as is proxy for the community and the members that were here today. So I'm just highlighting things that I think are significant.
But sorry, I have a question. From what I'm understanding, you're saying that it's regardless of whether your project happens or not, is the result.
The no build
build
condition
is-
goes to 2025, and that doesn't.
But no build includes projects that haven't yet been approved.
But not there.
That's right.
Right. So typical industry, typical industry practice is that you would look at other adjacent developments that are in the area, put them in your no build condition if they're approved or have standing with the municipality that you're in. I think to Mr. Soto's point is that, and I tend to agree, is that there's so many applications in this immediate area that you don't want to keep bumping the baseline for each application, because then you never get a bite of the apple, right? You're like, oh, you increased it 2 seconds, you're good. You increased it 3 seconds, you're good. And then all of a sudden you've increased it 40 and you're kind of left, holding the, So I think what we should consider and how we go about it and who's doing it is look at it as all the applications are the builds, and that dictates the improvement if necessary or the mitigation. But then each application is only paying their pro rata share.
I mean, that was something, adding these projects, was something that was requested from the board when we
Right, but
came back through here, so it just.
I think looking at it, and there's more applications that have even come to the board since this, so I think.
How do they manage, and I'm not, as a member of the public, I'm just wondering how any applicant keeps up with, because, I mean, if these were spaced out, and I get it, they're not, this is the nature of what the development that's happening. But how can we require any applicant to, I mean, they're being as current as possible, right? They're using the information that's available for.
Projects that are approved, right?
No, they're using projects that are not approved. They're using projects that are proposed, which is.
It's like if something else comes up,
Yeah,
it then
like what
gets
if in
tacked
2 weeks
on.
someone's
right?
like, hey, I just bought property. They have to redo their whole report. It just.
So, no,
We're here initially, any project that typically would come after us that's looking at traffic includes our data into theirs. Yeah, I mean, we did, and Carly, I just want to just clarify one point, because we did include counts from 145 North Chestnut. We didn't have the report, but we did use ITE.
maybe we missed that. but-
Okay, just, so that one even came in after we did, but we did include it in our study to, try to give the full breadth of all the projects that are going on here.
And, it's really at the discretion of the board, how you're gonna look at it from a seeker perspective. And 100%, I get what Justin's saying, and I agree, and I've sat on the other side of the table and had this argument. But it can be unique to the particular situation, and in this case, the corridor. And it's not unprecedented that you take a look at it comprehensively and then treat each application on its own as it comes in, but you don't want to kind of segment the process by saying, well, you were in first.
When I understand that, I just.
And I think it's unique because within a very limited space, we have multiple projects that have come up, so that bar has increased each time. And at some point, we do need to look at it in a more comprehensive manner. And I don't know how we get to that.
So one of the challenges, right, is we have an MBR zone with limited guidance on design, right? So we're in front of historic preservation design review, trying to shape a design guideline, right? We have limited guidance on an overall traffic plan for this zone because of how stressed the corridor is and these intersections are. So we're kind of now reinventing it. We're talking about maybe a bigger traffic plan that might include how do we participate in fixing that problem, because it's really a state problem, not a village problem. The village can make recommendations, but there's nothing the village is going to be able to actually compel anyone to do. We're coming to the table and we're trying, so we're gonna try to create pedestrian traffic somewhere else. We're putting a bridge in and connecting the rail trail. Maybe that will help, right? Because that's a mitigation measure to move people off the roadways on foot and their cars. Maybe people that are gonna live in the project are gonna walk to town now because they'll be able to, because they'll just get on the rail trail and not have to worry about a sidewalk. So it's like we're all kind of working through this process together, right?
We're learning together.
Yeah, and I mean, it's good and bad, but it's where we're at, right? I mean, that's the thing. So, but yeah, I mean, so that's kind of where we're trying to go through this, because I think that's like the next step would be the village doing a bigger traffic plan, and it's like.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, and to piggyback on that, you may want to think about going beyond what you specifically know and look at the other parcels that you may see forthcoming and include that in the comprehensive plan, rather than, doing, say, the 10 projects that and then now you're redoing it when you get 5 more applications. And maybe do a draft environmental impact statement for the whole zone, and then that way you can.
Okay,
No, I'm
great.
sorry, I'm sorry.
I wasn't gonna say that.
But Rich.
The life started in government, it may end there.
One moment,
I
gentlemen.
want to clarify my point. We did ask for other development to be included in consideration. I think the methodology of that was done exactly as we had discussed, and I think you agree with that. The point I'm making that I think might be being moved a little bit along the discussion is that for transparency, I think it would be more effective to provide a clearer comparison between today's state and the resultant state of the build scenario that you're proposing, as opposed to using the baseline of an imaginary set of other projects, and then we're only going to be a little worse. So I think that the data doesn't tell that unless you look at it more carefully, and I'm just suggesting that would be a more transparent way to present the resultant impact of yours and other projects over today.
So you would like to have,
Just
Okay.
adding a column in the table. that
okay, but you'd like to have a view of what is current, what is proposed with one, but also a further column in terms of what is the aggregate with all of the projects that are
The aggregate's in
proposed.
there, it's just that, I think probably don't understand what I'm.
Yeah.
What I think would be helpful to community residents that are asking about this issue.
Basically, I think you just said, I think it's just another column
Could be.
that says existing LOS is A, all this information here, but the delay is like 10.3. And then in 2025 build or no build, it's 10.8. So that delta, not the delta between the 2025 build and no build and build, but the existing.
I think it, if I can jump in, I think it's more, take the existing, apply your standard background growth rate for what you don't know.
Okay, take
You
the-
start with that as your no build, and then do a North Chestnut corridor build, so to speak, and show that delta.
And yeah,
And then just to your point, because I see the concern about your specific project and its incremental impact, then also show what your specific project incremental impact is as well, which you already have. To say, here's the impact of everything that's going on in the corridor, and here's what our particular project represents in that overall impact. That helps us have a proper conversation
Okay.
on each one of these projects and their individual and collective impact against what people already experience as problematic today.
Can I just comment? I feel like we're forgetting that Gateway used, up until last year, when we tore the building down, there was traffic. There's a mental health, two facilities there with quite a few trips and sewer usage for that matter.
Right, and.
And now we're going,
as well.
we haven't added that in. We're going, so we're taking that out.
Conversation with a different
Aggravating.
applicant, with a different applicant, which was Stewart's, who's now applying for less traffic, and they're trying to use paths. So
Yeah, we're.
Except they just moved down the street.
Right.
That's a different, and they made a bigger store.
The conservatism of your study is clear, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, we
actually
had more trips with Gateway than we're going to have with our new building.
My point is,
Yeah.
let's be as transparent as we can about the whole of what we're discussing in more than one application conversation,
Okay,
because that's what everybody wants to know.
Sure.
so.
And I think you guys make note of that in your study.
Yeah, I was
right?
gonna say in our
That
study,
you didn't
we
take
noted that, yeah.
you don't take the credit for the as of right.
For sure.
Right.
We didn't take the credit and predicted that, like, operating today, that the peak hours for the Gateway facility would be even higher than what this project is.
Thanks for hearing me out.
All right, so we've not really put this to bed, but I think we've gotten to a point where we may need to have a little further discussion in the next week or so regarding this, so that's fine, we understand. So Carrie will now take the spot. So we're going to come back and probably talk a little bit more about traffic, but that'll give us some time to study and refine it, and then I don't want to get too hung up in the minutia tonight. Okay. So moving along then, and thank you very much, Carlito. We appreciate it, and we're certainly going to reach out to you to perhaps provide us a little more insight.
Yeah.
In the coming week or so, especially as as it applies to his comments. We'd like to understand a bit more about that, okay?
Yep.
So the next thing we're gonna do is, there are a list of issues that our attorney said were previously raised in some memos. No new submission has been made by the applicant since that meeting of 3/7/23, so there is no need to discuss these again tonight. The board should focus tonight on reviewing the other consultants' comments. So you have those, and you're looking at me like you don't know what I'm talking about.
What's this? I'm sorry. Mr.
We talk about the items that.
Right.
Items that we spoke about last meeting.
Right.
Okay.
And so our attorney is waiting to have those remarks and those replies to her, okay?
We talking about the easements? I believe?
Parking calculation includes reduction for residential office mixed-use properties under the village code. To apply such reduction, outstanding items must be addressed before the planning board can make a determination of significance under seeker. Needs engineering review of the proposed water and sewer demand, impacts to existing sewer pump station. Applicant needs to provide a copy of the amended Central Hudson easement to confirm. And these, now you're looking at me like you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Does she have?
She does, and I thought you got that. If not, I can certainly give you my copy at the end of the meeting. However, it would be better if we got this directly from Autumn to have on there exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, sure.
Okay?
Or just real quick,
Sure.
we talked about the connection into the backside of the making that sidewalk, allowing the public to go through there. We are doing that, so we will be developing an easement.
Okay.
We'll allow that. So something that.
That's good, yeah.
Question, but that's the direction we're going.
Okay.
That was the public comment before. That was the woman who she's, okay, I wasn't sure.
And we'll provide drafts of those easements so Ms. Tori can take a look and
Okay.
Mr. Frank can take a look as well.
Autumn, did we get the name of that, the lady who was speaking? I think I may have it, but did you get the lady who was speaking concern? If so, let's.
Yeah.
Right. Let's make sure that she's including those. Okay, so we're kind of at a point where we have to stop because we can't really go any farther until we get some of this other information together. So thank you very much for coming to visit us tonight. And anything at last here that we need to clear before we? Okay, so I will speak to our attorney. We'll make sure that you have the information, and we'll have our project manager get you those detailed lists. Yes.
Just one thing, Mr. Chairman, as a point of order, I believe you adjourned the public hearing until the April 18th.
Correct.
meeting? Does that mean you're not going to take any public comment then on the meeting of the 4th
No, we will. Yeah.
as part of the public hearing itself? Because if
That's the
so,
public comment.
as public comment, but not reopen the public hearing.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure.
Right. Got it. Okay, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next application is PB 2302 145 Chestnut Street, KES Chestnut Properties. This is an application for a site plan and special use permit approval to demolish the former Agway and construct, and it talks about exactly what it's going to construct residential. This was classified as a type 1 action at the January 17th meeting. Declared our intent to be lead agency and circulate a lead agency notice upon receipt of a revised EAF. It does require a referral to the Ulster County Planning Board. Did we make that referral? I don't see a note that we did, but I also don't see that as being part of the next steps. So if you can just look that up and make sure that we've done that. We're also going to have to get a public hearing that's going to be issued here. So we'll have to get a public hearing at some point. But right now, the next steps is we're going to listen to any updates you have. We're also going to have our village engineer speak to the information, and Dennis is still here. And then after that, we'll go over certain issues such as referral to the HPC. There's a note about some revisions to the EAF. Yeah, and then we've got a list of these other issues, which I think you may have because they were in a prior memo, but we'll just briefly, quickly go over those. So let's hear of your update, please.
Good evening, Charles Gottlieb again, Land Use Council for the applicant, KES Chestnut Properties. Here with the project architect, Jason Anderson. A very similar project to what you just heard, mixed use project in the NBR zoning district, 68 residential units. We're hoping tonight to move this along the process with hopefully declare your intent to be the secret lead agency and do the circulation. If the board feels it appropriate to start the public hearing process at the next meeting, if we think that would be good, so we can start to get some comments in. And in addition, declaring yourself lead agency for seeker allows us then to send it all to the Department of Transportation. We can start that process.
On the January 17th meeting, we also declared our intent to be lead agency and circulate a lead agency notice upon receipt of a revised EAF.
Yep, and so our most recent submission was that revised EAF.
Okay.
Per the comments that were made. We also submitted a written secret narrative because, I have a list here of reports that are attached to our EAF. A geotech report, an engineering report that includes stormwater, water, and sewer, floodplain information, revised habitat reports, renderings and viewshed analysis, SHPO determination, and a traffic report.
Okay.
And so I sent that, the project team put together that secret narrative because all those reports are very technical, not necessarily easy for the public to digest.
Right.
So it was our hope that that narrative kind of just summarizes all the secret impacts and the mitigation.
Unfortunately, we've not received that secret narrative. Although it may be coming right now.
Okay, perfect.
So
These are the ones that were available in the building department, I guess.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Thanks. Thanks, Laura.
So now the onus is on us.
You can skip a third.
Yeah, well, So now the onus is on us to go through this. And I apologize that we didn't do it earlier.
And so, again, the intent of the secret analysis was to summarize the reports and studies, set forth kind of in stone the mitigation that we're proposing, and also to address things like consistency with the comprehensive plan, consistency with zoning, things like that. So, we hope that you can take the next steps in doing that circulation. Likely when Dennis is able to review our revised EAF, we feel as though it is responsive to all the comments that we've received. And, we do have a traffic report in there. It's not the full traffic impact study that we just had a conversation about. But certainly once we get comments from Carlito, we will revise accordingly.
Okay. Okay, so what we need to do is, first thing we want to do is Dennis, if you can just weigh in on this project in as brief a manner as you would like to go through this.
Yeah, I issued a comment, some general comments on March 17th. And the main issue, of course, is the what we discussed earlier with the other application is the pump station. We want that evaluated as, during the seeker process. That's just what they call the Stop 32 pump station. I had some general comments about the stormwater approach. The SWIP has not been submitted yet, which is fine. That usually gets developed as the project advances, but I just had a few general more questions and comments on the approach, just to make sure, their engineer had that information, feedback, and could call to discuss. But, it is a redevelopment project, so the stormwater certainly is going to be a manageable on the project. Obviously, they're requesting a new entrance to Route 32 and keeping the shared entrance with the car wash. So that will be your traffic consultant will look at that, but that will also involve the regional office of the DOT. Plans are in pretty good shape. Obviously, both plans are well done, and for the stage they're at, are good engineering. Like I said, mostly smaller technical issues, and then the pump station issue. I'm here to answer any questions.
Just note, we haven't seen that March 17th comment memo from Dennis, so we could just get a copy of that.
Okay, so 317 memo. Okay, so that we made a note on that one. Anything else we need to? Oh, we've got Dennis's time here.
I don't think so. It's pretty much the same conversation we
Yeah.
just had for the last application related to the sewer stuff.
Okay.
So, the two applications, luckily they can kind of be quarterbacked through me since I'm representing both projects. And then I can work with Ms. Torrey and Mr. Frank to get everything squared away.
Okay. Okay. All right, Dennis, I guess that's all we need from you. Thank you very much for your contribution tonight. We do appreciate it.
Did, just before you go, Dennis, did you have a chance to look at the revisions to the EAF for purposes of sending them out to the involved agencies?
I looked at them, but I'm not the one that commented on the EAF initially. Was that?
Okay.
I think that was Ashley.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not the one that generated the comments on the EAF. I did look at your submission of March 14th. But not in a lot of detail because they weren't my comments. I think
She does have these comments here, and I can certainly read them off to you and then get you a copy of it. So what she has said regarding the EAF is the EAF should be revised as follows. Resubmit with the appropriate labels corresponding with appropriate appendices. The EAF and EAF Part F supplemental information on page 14 refer to Appendix A through Appendix M. If specific appendix letters are going to be used for identification and reference, then the appendices must contain corresponding labels with the appropriate letter. While there are various documents attached to the EAF, there are no labels indicating which constitute which appendix.
Okay.
So that's very small, but something, yes. So those are the two EAF comments that she has on that.
It's just the labels?
Yes,
Okay.
that's just the labeling. So Dennis, thank you very much. If you need to head out, I think we're pretty clear at this point.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to hear from our Mr. Holt here regarding the traffic, which I believe will probably be much the same. So we'll take a broad view rather than kind of go into the narrow details as we've already visited that.
Hi again. So we reviewed the site plan with respect to access and circulation, and as Dennis mentioned, they're maintaining the shared access at the southern end of the property, but they are proposing a new access at the north end.
Right.
So they're going to need to get feedback from DOT. DOT's typical policy is they don't approve a secondary access without adequate justification. A little unique here because it's the other access is shared. So I think that's something that you're going to want to get input from them early on in the process, because that could be a substantial change to the plan if they came back and denied that new access point on the north end of the property. We had some just general circulation comments. Just a crosswalk should be provided on the northern proposed driveway. Site distance analyses should be performed. It appears that some of the on-street parking proposed may conflict with sight lines. The pedestrian access to the rail trail should be continued through the westernmost parking area. It kind of takes them into that parking area, and then that crossing ends and doesn't continue on to where the connection to the rail trail would be. We suggest some stop signs and stop bars at one of the on-site internal intersections, that you have two-way traffic that's feeding into a one-way lane on the northwestern corner of the site. And then on the southern site, when you're coming into that one-way parking area, it's a bit offset. So anything they could do to better align that as you're going into that parking bay would be beneficial. Truck turning template should be provided, and just confirm that they have a loading zone that's adjacent to a handicap space. So they just need to confirm that the loading wouldn't conflict with the accessibility of that space. Trip generation, we found to be appropriate. They did it in accordance with ITE standards. We just suggest that when they do their expanded traffic study, they looked at two scenarios, one with the commercial as office, one with it as retail. They should analyze it as the most intense traffic use, to be conservative. And as mentioned, the traffic letter or traffic and parking letter they submitted was just the trip generation and parking calcs. They didn't do any offsite analysis. So not to belabor the point that we got on the last application, but they should look at a more comprehensive traffic study. And I think that needs to be coordinated with what we discussed with the last application. And I guess the one thing I would note is that one of the public comments earlier mentioned some intersections to the north. We were focused on everything to the south. So whether we wanted additional locations included with this study to the north, that could fall under the purview of this applicant, since the prior applicant kind of did the heavy lift with getting all the data to the south. And, this might be the applicant to look for to do the speed counts with the rubber hoses as well. And then parking calcs, they showed that they meet code. They also did a shared parking analysis that demonstrated that the parking would be adequate as proposed. That's all I had.
Okay. Any feedback on this, comments on this?
No, just if someone could send them to us, that way if we have them, we can send them off to our traffic consultant and with the information for you.
Okay, can you get that information to them?
Yeah.
One small thing to note is that as we had this conversation about the slowdown and calming of traffic from the north from 55 to 40 to 30, your building being further north than the other building discussed, might want to even more consider. I heard you say maybe that the speed tests there might want to even more consider the potential, safety implications, pedestrian implications, exit, egress, timing and all that stuff, of the idea that people are very much more likely to be going 45 than 30.
Yeah, I think as part of the speed study, you should definitely get one in the 45 zone and then one in the 30 zone to see, I think that'd be a good demonstration, right? You do one in the 45 zone, and then when you get well into the 30 zone, how many are still traveling at that same speed?
I have one question. Is there anything that's within the village or town's purview that from a traffic remediation, anything that we can do without DOT's permission? Is there any, like even the flashing, no? what I asked.
You can't put anything in there right away without a permit.
DOT is very, very strict.
I was just.
It's a nice way of putting it. I usually use another term, but
Like for some projects, not in this municipality, but we've suggested more mitigation and they're just like, no. And the planning board doesn't like to hear that because, you know, everyone wants the additional mitigation, but they just say no. Kind of rules the day.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like the speeding changes too. Those are really hard to do.
Okay,
Thank you.
probably don't thank you very much for your help, and if you can get them the information they've requested. We appreciate it. Okay, so with that in mind, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna get this.
There's just one question I had about the FEAF when I was looking through it. The appendix A has this site plan.
Where it's not cantilevered like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with the building is not parallel with 32. Is that accurate? The last site plan I thought you did.
It should be angled with,
It should be.
yeah, it should be
Okay.
parallel with 32. That was actually a previous submission that we had.
Right, yeah, I figured this was just out of date. But
It's not symmetrical though in the new design.
true.
Yeah, so that was part of the discussion back and forth.
Yeah.
It treats people like we have.
All these
symmetry is everything.
I'd rather have the streetscape symmetry.
So if we make those changes to the EAF, the tabs and that comment, would we have to wait for another meeting to get it sent out to the involved agencies, or would you guys permit Autumn to?
Why, honestly, I'm gonna have to consult with our attorney. It's
Okay.
unfortunate that our attorney is not here tonight. But that's a question I need to work with her on. Yes, ma'am.
Ashley did ask Dennis if there were other involved agencies to propose today, and Dennis responded that there may be, but he doesn't have any feedback at the moment. So, I don't need, yeah, they're working on the list.
So, yeah, we're gonna have to get that list from Dennis and our attorney before we.
Yeah, I can't think of anything other than, you know, what we put on there.
True.
But, you know, I'll also remind Ashley, she can also just give me a call so we can have a heads up before the meeting.
Okay.
Usually the Department of Health, he's not sure.
Okay. Okay, so what we really need to do at this point now is, we need to refer this to the Historic Preservation Committee. So I need a motion to refer this application to the Historic Preservation Committee. So motion. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so this will be to, for the proposed alterations to the exterior of the structure to be reviewed by the Historic Preservation Committee. Then you are looking to have us set a public hearing.
Yes, that would be great.
Tentatively, we're gonna have to set that for what, the 18th? Yeah,
Okay. That's gonna
So,
take time to generate
yeah.
minutes for this.
so, want to get a motion to set the public hearing for April 18th,
So moved.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So that has been set. Other than that, I think that we need to, did we refer this to the Ulster County Planning Board is the question. Okay, so it does need to be referred to the Ulster County Planning Board. So can I get a motion to refer this application to the Ulster County Planning Board?
So move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that will be on their April 5th meeting.
Great.
So that's really about all the business that we can conduct. You do have, there are a number of issues here, 10 as I note, that were from the previous meeting. So if you'll just reach out to Autumn, she'll get you a detailed list of what exactly those items are.
Those are from,
From
this morning.
previous meetings, yes.
Okay.
So it's zoning summary table and some other details, determining total square footage, et cetera, et cetera.
Most of those are addressed, actually, I believe in that.
In this packet?
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we'll be going over that to make sure that that is indeed done. So we probably have all the information we need
Yeah.
from them and some good studying to do over the next several weeks.
So would the board like us to come back on the 4th to talk about the circulation and any changes or?
Or she can provide that.
Well, I think go ahead and let's tentatively plan to have you here. And then we'll consult with our attorney about whether it's necessary to have you here to get that done.
Okay.
But let's go ahead and tentatively place you on that meeting.
Great.
And I think that's it.
Great.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you guys so
Thank you.
much for your patience.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you. So now we want to get PB 2218, 6, 8 and 10 Cooper Street, David Chepler. Summary for application to construct 3 two-family dwellings. Public hearings required. Going to review the revised plan, discuss any comments from the village engineer on the revised plan. Did we receive any comments from the Ulster County Planning Board? Oh, county impact. And then we'll discuss getting a public hearing. We'll try to have Dennis here to give us any more input on this, but I think we've already made it. Well,
That's a memo.
Yep. Which is right here. So we can review that memo. Do you have a copy of this memo?
I do.
From Dennis? Okay. So, area of major concern, tributary to the South 32 pump location. No, that's the wrong one. That's KES, sorry. Thank you.
You scared me.
Yeah, I'm sure I've got it.
Sure.
You guys, you're gonna throw me into this pumping station issue too? No.
Outhouses, the answer is more. Says, follow to our prior comments, we received engineered site plan for 3 lots, if I remember this is buried in my file there. Plans acceptable with the following additions, a separate sediment and erosion control plan for the 3 lots provided.
It's done.
Good. Note should be added to the plat that quote, in the event these lots are further subdivided in the future, each new lot shall be required to have a separate water and sewer service installed in the public main. Each lot will be separately metered. End quote.
Yeah, we're gonna end up not subdividing them after all, so that won't be an issue.
Okay.
Meaning they're gonna each be governed with like a homeowners association.
Okay.
And or someone buys the whole thing and
then they can come
rents
forward.
out.
Right, yeah.
What?
I thought you were gonna say they could buy the whole thing and then they can come to us if they want to subdivide it. But you're
Oh, yeah, but I just mean that they would most likely do that so that they could rent out one of them or create a, whatever they want.
Okay. All right, so why don't you, so we've got Dennis's notes there.
So we've finished the thing. I just sent it to Autumn today. I'll leave this large copy with you, and if you need more copies of this, I can get more. I've ordered that, but just PDQ ran out of this paper. They're the only game in town, and they're not keeping up with the paper.
They're not in town anymore.
Yeah, they're not. You have to order it. I don't know if you know this. You have to like trot across. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, I'll leave this copy. This is a templated thing, as Dennis will tell you. Is he still here?
No.
This is like a cookie cutter thing. It's like sediment control plan is like commodity for them, for the engineers, and so it's. I don't think anyone will have any issues with it.
Okay.
So I don't know if you have any questions on the grading utility plan. He was fine with it.
No, we kind of take his
Right.
word for it.
Okay, I'll leave this with,
Okay.
Otter then.
Yes.
And then the other, thank you, Rich. The other thing is, I just wanted to show you guys, this is kind of the fun of it. I know it's getting late. You guys have been really slacking off after only 3 hours of planning work time. Yes.
I'm in a half.
Can't wait for my regular job.
And do you guys mind sharing one? And actually, wait, no, you can all have it. I blew them up so you could see them a little bit. So what we did here, I don't think this is really, this is more an aesthetic thing than anything, but what it did is it allowed us to. Here's what happened. We discovered that there are no solar installers anymore that will install the Tesla roofs, which are, I don't know if you know this, but Tesla tiles are these like, pan. So we can't get them anymore. So we had to come up with a way, because we're aiming to make these zero net energy structures, right? So we have to have a lot of solar. So the design that we had, which is largely a flat roof and is particularly problematic for the southern one because it's sort of aimed northeast. We couldn't put enough rigid panels on it to make it work given the profile of the building. So we went back to the drawing board, and as you'll see, if you look at page 1, what we did is we ended up flipping the southern roof and adding a 40-degree grade there, and we can put all the panels there. It actually turns out to be really nice in a number of ways. And it actually turned out, funny enough, function ended up creating better form in this case. I actually like the design better because it looks more visually interesting, right? Like they're not just mirror images of each other. This is what they used to look like.
So the solar on one side of the building is sufficient for the needs of the entire building.
We may end up, and we have to do the analysis with Hudson Solar, or what are they called now? Suncommon. Be sure, we may end up throwing a few more panels on the road, but there's tons of space now. The majority of it will be the if you look at number 2, the second page, the majority of the solar will come from the panels deployed in that profile. So on that southern facing roof. And it almost, in 2 of the cases, it almost points perfectly solar south. So we'll have a lot of production out of those, which makes me happy. But anyway, I just wanted to throw those to you just so you can get a sense of it. And I think the stacked gable look is really visually interesting.
Right.
So we're happy with that. The only other thing I'll bring up is when they did this engineering study, the grading utility plan, there's no impact to this, but I just want you to be aware of all these things. It turns out that the lots were not what do they call the markers were not placed right. So it actually turns out that they were a few feet off on the back. So we lost a little bit of property. As you'll see when we finalize the new site plan, it doesn't affect anything. It doesn't hit any of the setbacks, so we're fine. But we were very surprised by that. Initially worried, but it turns out that'll be
What is
no
the
big deal.
property that would have gained it?
We lose property and that Village Arms gains it. Yeah. So, but again, I just wanted you to be aware.
Doesn't change the setback.
No. We have to, on the southern one, do I have the site plan here? The ones that are where the most property is lost actually it doesn't impact it at all. There'll be no change whatsoever. The southernmost one, we're gonna have to move it like 1 foot. We're gonna just pivot the whole site. The property like 1 foot. And so we'll get that to get you those new plans as soon as that's done. It should be in the next few days. But it'll literally look no different. You won't be able to tell that difference, but I just want to let you know that that's coming. So basically what happened is this line right here is in a few feet. I think it's like 4 feet in, and it's slightly on this curve. It actually, this corner, it stops. So this is true, but the whole thing, think of it as kind of hinged over about at most, the largest area is about 4 feet at this corner. You know, so you're gonna take that whole line and just by 4 feet at this corner is what it did. But as you can see, the setback is large there. You have, we have 25 feet there and we're at 30. This it doesn't even get close to that.
Okay.
Okay.
Question? No? Okay. So really what we need to do now is we need to get a public hearing for you guys. How many do we have on the 18th now, 2? One? I thought we had 2. That's fine. So let's see if we can get him scheduled on the 18th. We need a motion to schedule a public hearing for PB 2218 on April 18th.
We'll move.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, yeah, we've got you all set then.
Good.
Yeah, it looks like it's coming along well.
Yeah, we're excited. We have excited to break ground. It's been years in the making.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
So before we leave, just a couple of requests. Terry, would you mind working with Dennis to kind of help filter that information into a more comprehensible form? Because you speak engineerese. So
What information?
that he's going to give us regarding the applications that we were speaking about and the pump station.
Thanks, Terry.
That would be helpful. And would you work with Carlito to get the information that you think is necessary for the traffic studies so that we can have that again in an understandable format?
Yeah. Just make sure that he's clear on the suggestions I made in order to.
Yes, yes.
My job to bring the pizza. I'm just kidding.
You bring dinner next
My
time.
dad texted me, he was like, you're making dad jokes in this meeting, it's really embarrassing. It's like, I know, I'm so sorry.
So I think that's it for right now. Have you already gone through this?
I picked this up a few days ago and yeah, look.
I haven't gone. I'm sorry, I didn't pick it up.
Would you help us filter through some of this? Because this is quite a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the main thing to really read through is this narrative. Certainly helped me understand a lot. And then a lot of this are just appendices that, you know, aren't stuff you have to actually read through. So yeah, I think it's pretty manageable, and overall, I didn't see anything that was too concerning. But you know, some of the engineering stuff, yeah, not fully understanding in that part. That's like appendix something.
Yeah.
EUD.
Appendix L.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you all for hanging in. 10 o'clock, this is one of our later meetings. Unfortunately, it just couldn't be helped. We needed to clear our deck so we can start fresh on this, the next in 2 weeks. That's right. So I guess what we need then is a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Autumn and everyone, I won't be present for the 4th.
Okay,